Who's got it better than us?
Nobody!
Robert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back, number 6.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Sets his speed, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton. Caught! Touchdown! Chargers!
Boys, grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Four more days, Chargers fans, until the thrills and the spills of the 2026 NFL Draft. You are hearing a different voice in your headsets. It's Alistair hosting the show today. We don't have Andy or Jack, but we do have a great guest and someone who's well known to all of you in the TDU crew. He is one half of the Powderkeg Podcast with our buddy Kyle, and he is a frequent and voracious contributor on stormcloud.blog, and in true draft fashion, hailing from Hertfordshire, UK, measuring in at about 5 foot 9.5 inches, weight undisclosed, hand size big, 11 inches, big hands. You know what they say. It is, of course, Ryan Watkins. Welcome to the show, mate.
Oh, mate, if I had 11-inch hands, I would have caught a lot more balls, and I'd be a wide receiver, not a DB. So, yeah. I'm absolutely amazing, mate. As you said, it's 4 days until the draft. Obviously, you guys know how time difference works on your end, but on our end, it's the opposite, as in draft time is very late here. You have to suffer through for the glory, especially if your team does well. It's always like your team goes on a deep playoff run, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna stay up so much later in the draft. So, and if we trade out, I'll be happy, but I won't be happy at the time.
Yeah, you'll be like, I've spent 3 hours watching this thing, and we haven't even picked a player. So the plan for the show, listeners, and before we go on, quickly hit that like and subscribe button, and go across to the Powderkeg Podcast channel and do the same for them. Our show for you today is essentially the ultimate 2026 NFL Draft preview. Between Ryan and I, we might have watched 1,000 hours of all 22 of these prospects. It would be getting up there. I've watched 75 guys in detail, and it's great. We approach it in different ways. Ryan, it seems to me, is focused on some position groups especially, and gone really deep with some of those position groups. So I imagine he's going to have day 3 knowledge I maybe don't have first-hand experience of, and the goal for this show is to have start with a bit of chat generally about our approach to watching tape, some thoughts about this class. You've all heard from me already, so we'll go particularly with Ryan on those, and then we're going to go position group by position group, talking about what we've seen from these each position group in this class, the depth, how these strengths might align with the Chargers' needs. Any guys we think are overrated or underrated, or bad scheme fits or great scheme fits. And I'm sure there will be a healthy amount of disagreement along the way. We're both highly opinionated people. So, Ryan, why don't we start with an easy one? I just wanted to ask you, we haven't heard from you about the Chargers off-season strategy so far. And since we last recorded, we've seen Joe Ortiz and Chad Alexander up at the podium. Did you have any takeaways from that, and how may that have changed or made you double down on how you feel about the Chargers off season today?
It did change my mind slightly, but not overall. But I think the one big takeaway is that I think from now on I'm never going to look at free agency class as long as these guys are in charge ever again. Yep. I'll just go straight to the draft. Whenever we exit January, February, draft straight away. No way. I like all of them. I know you guys had a great show with the Guilty as Charged guys, and you also did the same thing. I like each of the moves individually. I can't criticize any of them individually. In terms of the additions, the question is obviously the moves we didn't make, and the reasons for those not being made. Compensatory picks. Now, one thing that I think has been alluded to, Alistair pointed out very very astutely is that in the press conference, Joe Ortiz basically said that if Tito or Oboya or Deshaun Hand play over 50% of the snaps for their new teams, they'll get bumped up into the compact formula, equation. And what that means is that we could possibly be looking at getting a 4th for the Zion contract and maybe even an extra 7th for the Benjamin St. Juste. Now, this is a game that, as Kyle constantly reminds me, changes throughout the whole season. And anyone who says they know exactly what it is, they really don't. There's like 13 people who actually know the actual equation in the world. So trying to pin a strategy on that's where I take issue. To say, okay, if the former 5th round DT who never really broke through, has always been injured, needs to play over 50% snaps for a team you don't know, those coaches you're not in control of. That's a strategy I don't understand when you've got a lot of money in your pocket, and that's for me where I stand with it. I mean, like, and Al, you'll know my thoughts on this. I basically think that I'm so positive in my thinking that I'm always like, there's something coming around the corner. There has to be, because my logical brain would just go, why are we doing this? If not, there is no competitive advantage to having money left on the table past week 8. None. Like, zero. Like, unless you want to pick up, like, some magical free agent gets cut 1 week before the end of the season, but that's, you still have to get there. So that's where I take issue with it.
And I think a lot of us were hoping that the team were in on the Dexter Lawrence sweepstakes, and
exactly.
Perhaps they were, but we've seen overnight yesterday, the Bengals have secured him for pick 10. Very generous capital to outline. But Sam Monson mentioned this from formerly of PFF. Check the mic, thank you. He basically said, well, we can't in the one breath criticize this draft class and say how average the talent is, and then in the second breath criticize the Bengals for spending pick 10 to acquire a top 3 defensive tackle. So that was an interesting move. I thought we might be in on that, Ryan, but if we were, we weren't willing to spend that much, which is very aligned with Joe Ortiz's mantra of not, quote, overspending in his view. And I agree with what you said with respect to the comp pick formula. I mean, on the one hand, it made me feel a lot better to hear that we could still potentially unlock that 4th rounder for Zion. Kyle and I thought that was off the table. We thought that the contracts signed by Hand and Tito were just not going to get you up to being a qualifying compensatory free agent. We thought even if they play 100% of the snaps, the fact that that was a $3 million deal, they're going to fall below 7th round value, and so we're screwed. Not so fast, said Joe Ortiz. So that they're clearly way more confident. But like you, is it the best strategy, putting your faith on how another team intends to use a player who's a rotational player at best, when for me there was still that opportunity to let Trey Pipkins leave, sign for a different team, and presumably whatever he would have signed for would have on its face qualified without having to rely on snap share, assuming some team out there would have given him $4 million. But we're past that now. We move on to the draft, and what we're going to do now is take you through our draft preview. And let's start, Ryan, with some headline thoughts on this class, man. I was saying this to Stephen and Tyler about how I felt, but what are your overall thoughts on this class and how it lines up with the Chargers' needs?
I mean, the overall class, I like to be contrarian sometimes. It's in I like to go against the grain to help my brain process how everyone else is viewing things, but there's no going against it. This class is not good. Like, it's frankly not good. It's a good year not to have your full slate of picks. If you're going to choose any year to do so, maybe they did that when in advance with their trades. That would have been considered. But also I find that in every round, in every group, I find issues with almost every single prospect at their value. Because understand, sometimes you look at a prospect, you go, he's a defensive tackle, he's run only, and that's why he's in round 3. You got run only guys near the top of round 2 rankings in this class. Like, it's quite. But
some people
hard
want Caden McDonald in the top 20. I mean, that's you say, very one-dimensional based on his college tape.
Yeah, and even the first, like I said, if you go round by round, the first round especially, like, I can go down the list. Every time I'm doing a mock draft, I'm like, I really like him, but if I can trade down, but who's going to trade up and get that guy in this class? So I think there are options at certain positions. Like, for example, the league has had a defensive line depth problem for a long time now, and it's only getting worse. Hey, by the way, that's the reason there's going to be no expansion teams for a while until they fix that development pipeline. But I think there are good guards in this class. There's especially towards the top. You don't normally get 4 outstandingly good guards that you can get between picks, 25 and 45, minus Finger, because he's going to be gone long before we get involved.
Have you resigned yourself to that? There is less than 5% chance that Ioane is there at 22?
But I'd say about 5 to 10% chance. It would take a run on other positions, surprise positions, and if quarterbacks, if there's a run on quarterbacks or the offensive tackles, like I find myself sometimes when I'm doing mocks, as in if I do a whole round 1 or a whole 7-rounder, for the Chargers specifically, sometimes there are 5 tackles left at the top of round 2. Sometimes they're all gone. So it does help the board that way. That's how you kind of have to stack it. And I also like some of the options at corner. They're not conventional, and but there's good quality, which is definitely needed. And the most fun one for me, because they're a type of player I love to watch. For some reason, something happened in the water a few years ago across America, and everyone got tall and big and strong and fast at wide receiver. There, I think I've got 15 guys who are over 6'3", and there's a really fun set of players within that. A lot of balls of clay, some that are more developed, and I think this is the year to go get a boundary X.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you're anticipating that is something fans should expect if it's not in round 1, because actually most of the round 1 guys don't meet those prototypical trait profiles, unless you're going to look at someone like Denzel Boston. You're thinking more, Stribling, Brazel, these kind of guys are a little bit later on, and some day 3, Ted Hurst, Lance's brother.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
people like him. Yeah, people really like Ted Hurst. I wasn't so keen on the tape. I thought he's a little bit more rounded. So I didn't like. So when I say rounded, I mean he rounds off his footwork. He's not super clean, not super technical. You get that down at competition levels sometimes because they've never had to develop that side of the game. They're not in the SEC, so it does happen. I mean, I'll just say it now. I am stupidly high on Brazel.
Did you watch his Georgia game? I assume.
Oh yeah, of course. How can you not?
That's one of the best performances of any receiver in any game.
Yeah, and I, as much as I found issues with his attitude, which a lot of people have come through, like a lot of people have said come through on the tape, and obviously the intangibles. We'll get into how we scout, but just one thing that I never ever include in any report unless it's like an actual crime. Yeah, I never include any intangibles, as in because I don't know them. People can pretend to know them.
I'm gonna jump in straight away. So I will adjust grade for what I would call football intangibles. So I try to ignore okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah,
if
I'm talking off field or they interview poorly or they've got tweets in their background, you or even worse when people allude to injuries. Unless they've got ongoing problems for the same injury repetitively. For example, I always go back to Keenan Allen. What do people say about Keenan Allen for years? Yeah, injury prone. He can't finish the season. Now I think he's finished 5 or 6 seasons. Where his only injury concern has been his fitness. Let's put it that way. He has some ridiculous lacerated kidney from falling, from jumping sky high for a ball. Those are not things you can account for, and those are also things you can't plan for or have in your evaluation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So that's a natural segue. So when we watch tape, everyone has their own, prejudices or beliefs or things they try to focus on. I'll start with you, Ryan. When you're watching all 22, in terms of your process, what are some things that are important for you? What are some pitfalls for you?
Oh, this was a really fun prompt because this is the type of stuff I love to talk about, but that has to be a very specific community. So I'm happy that we've got this going. For me, people care way too much about results. Now, I'm not just talking the numbers, the bare numbers, there's one guy on Twitter who calls himself no film, a football analysis. I'm well, you're not a football analysis, you're a numbers analysis. Anyway, And people get way too obsessed with the result, but it's actually, especially in college where there is a massive QB scarcity, so production on both sides of the ball is always in question, and also RPO heavy ruins film evaluation, as our well knows. So when you take into account those things, and also many other aspects, you should be looking at how a player processes, from both pre-snap to post-snap, how they adjust, how they address, how did that receiver get open? Did they get open through a bit of detail that they separated themselves? Or was it just the scheme opened them up on a crosser and they took it 60 yards? How you say that, but I've seen how you've graded Chris Bell out of Louisville. So
Okay. Last time I checked, Miami are a pretty good defense, and he's run through the middle of them. But I'm with you.
Yeah. They parted like the Red Sea a few times.
Yeah, he was Moses on that one. Yep.
And for me, corners are super easy to evaluate because I coach them. But the thing is, because I look for the points that I know and I trust as an evaluator, and you basically say okay, when they're in zone, are they scanning? Are they understanding if he breaks or pattern matching? As soon as my number one breaks off, I know I've got to bail over to number two, get depth, or your linebackers getting depth. That's such an easy one to. So these are the things that are process driven rather than results driven, and that's
really
how
helps
I
for
approach
you,
it.
because a lot of people don't have that knowledge, that haven't played the game. When someone spot drops into zone coverage, what is the landmark there? Is it 7 yards? Is it 9 to 10 yards? You bring that knowledge to bear, having actually been there and coached it. And that's why we've got you on the show, because you're going to be vital as we talk through some of these position groups. I'm going to tell you some of the things I jotted down. Maybe yell out if you disagree. So in terms of what's important for me, I think I'm a little different. I would rather analyze fewer players and have a bigger sample size, so I feel like I know more of their game. So sample size for me is quite important. I like to see how old or young they were when they started dominating their opposition. So if I can see...
That's really curious to me, because...
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never looked at the data, and it's just something I was wondering recently when I was looking at Messidor versus Folk.
Yep.
And people are putting them in the same tier, and I just cannot simply understand that personally.
Yeah.
So I know that people are accounting for age. So is there a big historical trend across the league that when people break out late, they have issues continuing that breakout across when they transition?
Yeah, all I am doing now is parroting what I've heard. I have not read the studies or the data, so that's always a problem. But Hayden Winks from Underdog Fantasy is the biggest proponent with his modeling, where he says the clearest indicator of someone who's going to dominate in the pros is where they are, first team All-American or first team All-SEC as a 19 or 20-year-old. And he did say there's like an inversely proportional relationship. If you're seeing the late breakouts, he thinks there's more variability in how they perform at the next level versus the cleaner correlation. Now that's one person's opinion, who is quite a respected name now in the draft community. Listeners can go and we'd love for you to go and unpack that Tao if you want to, and tell us what you think. But maybe I also like to see a player's development. Is it linear? If I go back to their junior season, can I see that from their junior to their senior season, they've improved in certain respects? It's something I like to look at. I definitely like to look at competition. So what were they like against the best opposition, or in their biggest games, bowl games, or when there's been adversity in the game? So I can see the score, they're trailing by 2 to 2.5 scores in the second half. I try to take note as much as I can on those things. I want to see flashes of elite play that tell me this guy can be really good at the next level. But I also like a strong baseline and consistency. And maybe that's where someone like Caleb Banks comes into the discussion, where I watched enough of him getting blown out of his gap, facing double teams or playing with a really high pad level, that those flashes to me against LSU were last year, one of the best games you'll see someone play, started to offset the good when I just saw too much bad, and then the injury risks creep in. So I'm looking at those things. Effort for certain positions is telling Ryan, does the player take plays off? Do they get tired? Like Chris Brazzell, can I see that you're actually chipping and having fights with your corner through half of the game? I quite like that. Like, it's a run to the other side of the field. You're off the ball. I can see you're blocking the guy. You don't have to. And then you're like pushing and wrestling each other after the snap. I like seeing that stuff myself.
Me too. Especially when he's this as an X. That's a really, like, people don't really appreciate sometimes when you're an isolated player. So that's obviously your corners or your receivers. You have to have such a mental fortitude. You by the way, in college, they're not even involved in the play call. They get one signal from their safety or their quarterback, and that's what they know how they have to do. So you have to have such a mental fortitude to be able to be resilient enough to that guy's talking mad smack in your face. The crowd's going at you. You're right next to the opposition coaches a lot of the time. That stuff gets to people, and I really like anyone who can talk his talk, and he also packs a punch, like, as in, like, not a physical punch, but he can really block. I thought for 195 guy, like, I thought he was,
he looked more like 205, 210 to me. I was surprised. Yeah,
he weighed in quite light, which I know came back as a negative on him, but I another part of my thing is that I am a 95% tape guy. If afterwards I look at you and I see you've got some sort of good numbers on top of that, or you've got your RAS data that's come out, or if there's like Xavier Harris, you'll see my film grade on him is unbelievable because I think his tape is so good, but I don't account for
the
this.
Listeners, this is the defensive tackle for Ole Miss. He's about 6'8". It comes with some off-field concerns.
Yes, so I was just about to say, so I put a big red flag at the top of his profile. It's the only one I think I've done. I put a small one for Zion Young, but big red flag on here because that's an actual offense he's committed. So but I don't affect my grade for that. I just flag it. Yeah, so that's why he's way down on consensus boards. But it's that kind of stuff, like, people will talk about what's valuable and what's not, and it's really important to listen to the right people, in my opinion. So people only listen to people, in my opinion, this is what I do, only listen to people and learn from people who explain their thinking. Al's really good at this. Like, people like Tyler from JSC.
I thought you were going to go the other way there. Like, not Al, like football people only. Yeah.
You're a football dude, my dude. And then the QB school, like, I will never pretend to know enough about quarterbacking. Never. Like, especially after my Justin Herbert miss. So I wanted Jordan Love bad. And anyway, I will never know enough about quarterbacking because it requires the type of in-depth knowledge that takes decades of proper work. And I feel like people are too easy to say, oh, he's good, he's shit. Like, the proof is in the pudding when it comes to that sort of evaluation. And
even the league's not good at it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, horrible hit rate. But and anyone who knows like my work from previously, I work quite a lot with Thinking Football, so Stefan and Tyler and Josh and the guy and Thierry on the guys over there, and they do fantastic
excellent football
work
channel. If you haven't checked it out, they're doing a lot of good draft stuff. Thinking Football on YouTube.
Yeah, they just put their Makai Lemon. I disagree with it entirely, so it's always fun. So yeah, that's kind of like and I say stay away from anyone who just presents numbers to you as an argument. PFF grades, people will know my gripes with them, so I'm not going to go into it, but it's mainly because of I've been involved in the process of applying data to football, and it's just not enough. Like, you can give me the most complex metrics in the world, distilling it down to bare numbers is really difficult. I think the closest that we're getting now is oh god, Al, you're gonna have to remind me. What's the guys who did the live tracking during the Super Bowl? The live data tracking, the Sumo Brain.
Yep.
Yeah, Sumo Sports. They're the closest guys to getting it because they have just built the most complex model I think any I've ever seen data wise. So like, and even then, it's really hard to transcribe that into understandable quantums for me and you. So what do you think? What's valuable and not in your especially pet peeves when it comes to like online analysis?
So I agree with what you were saying. I try not to get sucked in by Senior Bowl one-on-one reps, combine testing if the tape isn't good, one elite game if most of their tape is shit,
Jerry Tillery.
Yeah. like you said, raw production numbers for some positions. So you're a wide receiver in an air raid offense, running a bunch of hitches and goes, and you came up against a bottom tier defense who didn't know how to guard it, Louisiana Tech or something, and you've had 200 yards. Not necessarily translatable and difficult to project to the next level. In terms of online, and we are going to get to players in a second, listeners, just after this. We're going to jump into the position groups. So many people these days, myself included, posting highlights in all 22 only ever play as good plays isn't helpful. I think you need to bring that balance. If you're going to give me a 3-minute, 20-second cut-ups of all these great reps of a player, that's not telling me a lot about the robust nature of what analyzing players requires. And all you see are highlights, best plays. We also have a problem with too many cooks in the kitchen now with draft opinions. So you're going to find someone out there who loves or hates every single player. So you need to do your best to find a trusted voice amongst the Twitter or wherever you get your data from.
Twitter's algorithm has also gone to hell in terms of pushing really like polar opposite opinions that you constantly to keep you in conflict. Yeah. I just get pushed. Literally, I'll scroll past one tweet like Messi was the best edge rusher in this class, that regardless of position, and then it's like, oh, Messi was so old, he's terrible. Like, and it's just like just constant conflict. Yeah. And I think that like and the emotion of college football, that's something that I'm very glad that I stay out of. Is that I come to the evaluation like Al around Super Bowl time. So whenever the Chargers exit, I give myself a week's holiday, and then I start into the process. And what I do is I go straight into all 22. I watch big college games, but I won't look at the players or just be enjoying it. That's what I try and do, and I enjoy football. But people who are in college football every single day, they get very attached to the emotion of it, not just in terms of who they have affinity with, but also commentators are obviously told to say certain players' names by basically what they're told in terms of their week's rundown before they get to it. So they'll repeat a name and you'll actually get some sort of like Pavlovian response to hearing a player's name. And that's what I actually believe is happening with Keldrick Falk, who I promise you, if you actually graded just his tape, he's a 3rd round player. Yeah. He has like next to no pass rush skills, and for me that's like a huge red flag. I think he's had 2 sacks in the last year. So for me, and then people go, oh, but he's potential, he's 20. I'm like, cool, I'm not drafting potential with a top 50 pick. So like I need to see it, and with him I feel like because he was so promising and so big and so strong that people have just said his name over and over and it's impacted. So that's what I think is a bit of a real impact of approaching the draft from the wrong perspective.
Yeah. Hey man, let's switch our order. I was going to start with O-line, but since you've led us to an edge to start with, let's start there. Let's talk about this class, this edge group. Chargers obviously have a need there. Can you start us off by telling me some things that really matter for you when you evaluate edge? And specifically, when you're thinking about the Chargers scheme, what do you think we should be looking for in this class?
I mean, with the Chargers in this class, it's pretty easy for me. Is that they've got to have explosive pass rush skills that are far beyond just speed. And when I say explosive, there are plenty of guys in this class who can put 2 hands in the outside shoulder, drive, and then collapse the arms and get around. But it usually is taking too long. Yeah, there are very few guys in this class who I believe can blow through shoulders. So that's either outside in terms of with a different rip, or it's going inside over the inside shoulder in swimming. However, that itself is got some scheme fit issues because we've got 2 guys who are going to be going inside shoulder. Khalil Mack likes to go through. He plays like what they call a hard edge in terms of pass rushing, so he's going to go through your outside shoulder and try and go through your center mass to the quarterback behind you because he can. And then you got Thule, who's really good at swimming inside, so he sets up counters really nicely. What we need now is a guy who can sort of bend and speed off the edge, but importantly is not going to give up our gap integrity because we don't play QB spy, for example. So he can't go flying around the edge 15 yards of field. He gets one arm on him from a big OT like Joe Alt. He's going to knock him out way out of a path, and then there's a huge gap for a quarterback to go through. They like to rush with integrity, so that's important to have in this group.
I'll jump in for a sec. So interesting. You do think the team should be leaning in a certain way. So another option would be to think that Khalil Mack's only signed for one more year. He may retire. So don't put any limitations on the type of rusher you draft. If you like Zion Young or someone who goes through the chest, take that guy. You're sounds like you're leaning a bit more towards someone who can win to the corner and flatten and bend. Is that fair?
I'm greedy by nature, hence why I'm not 150 pounds. I'm greedy by nature in terms of I want both, and that's why I believe strongly, based on how the boards are falling anyway, is that if we are not getting a certain player that me and Al both love, which we'll talk about later, we will be going edge in the first round, because at that point you can find someone who can do both, in my opinion. It's a narrow plane, it's a narrow strip to land on, but I still think it's possible.
Yeah, me too. There are a few guys.
Yeah, there's a few guys, and even I would say that because of just, it seems like people have got slight knocks on their skills, I still feel like there's guys further on who have been used in incorrect ways at their college level. So for me, this is a player we have a slight difference on. I was Gabe Jackas, or Hakas, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I have adored his tape since his junior year. He consistently caught my eye. I just write notes in terms of who caught my eye based on reviewing the previous year. He had like 3 gold stars, which is quite a lot for a guy who was not even meant to be watching. And I think he was used more of a 4-eye slasher, but I think he's got the speed, he's got the bend, he's got the strength, he's got the technical skills to play around the edge as well. So for me, that's kind of where I get into. We can go it if we address it early. If you wait until round 3, you have to pick a skill, and therefore you'll be picking a type, in my opinion. What about you? Do you have any guys in this class that you think can do both at that like sort of 22 to late 30s range?
Yeah, I mean, the names that come up for me who threaten the ability to do a little of both are Mesidor, TJ Parker in bursts, but for me, he just doesn't win quickly enough. I just didn't see quick wins on his tape. I saw some flashes of an inside counter, of a bull rush. Oh, okay, a dip in, okay. But it wasn't prevalent, at least in his 2025 tape. I think Akis, like you, is probably one of the closest who's not viewed as a day one guy who can do both. Now, when I watched Akis, I'd heard all the buzz. So maybe the contrarian in me I was thinking, here's going to be the guy who I'm really out there on and have as my edge 3. And in the end, I settled on him as my edge 9. I'll just read my notes. And I felt a bit bad, so maybe I got this wrong, because usually I do full summary, strengths, question marks. With him, I did a bit more watching on public transport and taking notes as I went. I said tall, strong base end with some versatility to play from 4-eye to 9, probably best suited to 5 or inside, given mediocre get-off and relative lack of athleticism. Illinois took him off the field in 4-down lineman formations, preferred him with 5 down, either as wide 9 or 4-eye. Strong bull rush with good leg drive and effort, plus some okay ability to bend towards the end of the rush if needed. Heavy hands for swipes. Power really improved from 24 to 25. Limited rush arsenal and gets caught leaning forward when attempting chops, leaving him open to snatch and trap moves. Will struggle to finish on the quarterback in tight quarters with poorer lateral movement skills. See club rip against Mendoza, which was a nice rep but could only hurry the quarterback. Some reps in run defense when he knifes inside, only for run to bounce outside to vacated gap. Hard to assign blame on him or scheme. He's also too slow to quickly bounce outside if he's playing a hard 5 and the running back hits the corner quickly, and he gets caught in no man's land on RPOs.
I do agree with especially some of the points you've alluded to and sort of collated there, is that I don't like him from a wide alignment. And the good thing is that the Chargers don't play with wide alignments, unless they're playing run defense. But then they'll split, the OLB to between the slot and the tackle. But that's why I think by the way, in case I've made it very obvious, I grade my entire board around what the Chargers need. Obviously, I count talent very much so, and for me, it kind of falls in place anyway when I'm looking at certain positions. But so it's always for me based on how I see them playing on Sunday in Chris O'Leary's system. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
What about some players that you think are either overrated or underrated? It sounds like Akis is one of those guys who at the moment you think is underrated. Sounds like Fork is a guy that you think is overrated, and I completely agree. On the one hand, I think you could argue he may be the best run defending edge in the class. At least his splash plays were pretty good. But it sounds like you want to jump in there. But the get off just did not exist at 6'7".
Yeah, the get off, and also I felt like a lot of his splash plays came from the games I saw. Now I will make sure that Al gets his credit here. Al has gone in super deep on every single prospect. He has watched what I call the thinking football standard, which is 6 games, like for almost every prospect. I decided to do
at least 4.
Yeah.
I aim for 6.
So I've done that in years gone by. It's 2022, 2023. I did that. 24, and now I'm starting to adapt into going to a bit faster so I can get through more prospects. Just it's how I'm doing things. So there are going to be games that I've missed. That's inevitable. I try and pick not their best games in terms of their production, and I try and pick it against tough opposition. And with the games that I saw, run defense, I felt like he got a lot of credit for plays where he was going down the backside of plays that were going away from him. And he is big and quick enough to get and corral those guys, but that doesn't work unless you've got a good run defense on the front side of those. So that came into my evaluation. So Fork is one guy I'm very far down on compared to others, and Cashier Tower's another. Oh my god, it's turning on the tape for the first time, and I think it was it an LSU game where he absolutely dominated. And he flashed 3 times for 3 incredible plays that was so fast and so quick. But between those, there's not really anything to his game that I enjoyed.
Here's a guy who I think the severe lack of length at sub 31-inch arms does actually show up. He can't initiate contact. He can't use a long arm. He can't generate power to threaten a tackle's chest. So when you saw him play higher end tackle talent like Francis Mauingoa in the college playoffs, he disappeared. And that was something that really worries me when we have already Kyle Kennard in the building.
Yeah, and he's got a throttle control issue as well, and that he goes too fast too quickly, which is inevitable when you're going like the Flash. But also I'm quite a trait I look for is how balanced you are through the top of through the top of your bend. So as he's coming to turn in, if he gets contact, can he survive that and keep his momentum in check? And a lot of the time, if you got a big paw on him, he'd have to steer around it. He doesn't have that. So I was very surprised to see him weigh in at 245. I thought he would be like 230. So I feel like he put some weight on towards the end of the season as well to try and boost his stock. If we go a little bit deeper, I don't like Joshua Josephs for the same sort of reasons. DPR only guy, but I didn't see enough in terms of the traits.
Did you see any potential in run defense at all, or did you think he was a pure 3rd down only guy? I know it's hard to recall.
I don't really like his balance was an issue that stood out to me. So if you're not balanced, you're not going to be able to take on blocks in inside the tackles. And I also found he had what was it? He didn't address gap scheme runs quickly enough. He would wait, sit, and then by then the guards coming to kick you out, the pulling guard. And I felt like that was quite a slow process for him, and his tackling mechanics were not clean either. So he's trying to just hit from a high hip height, and so run defense I did not see it. Some guys I'm higher on.
I got 2 questions. I got 2 questions for you because they're Chargers related. One's about Romello height. So you've said you like a bendy, fast guy who can threaten the corner. I watched 6 games of David Bailey, 6 games of Romello Heights. I'm much higher on Bailey, but there are whole half games where if you just didn't know these players and watched the 2, you'd say number 9 is quicker off the ball and bendier than David Bailey, just for periods of time. The second question we'll get to, a lot of people are interested in this. If the Chargers are on 22 on the clock and you've got Mesidor there at 24 and a half or 25 years old, you've got TJ Parker there as the 21-year-old who's had 24 sacks in college. which do you think is the way you would lean for what the Chargers need? But let's start with height.
First one, Romello Height. I absolutely loved his tape, and for the same reasons as you. You could genuinely look at some of those games with David Bailey, who's for some the best player in the draft, and you wouldn't know which one was which. I thought his tape was really, really fun. He's also the biggest thing for me is he's so consistent. Yeah. He plays every single down with the same intensity, same effort.
Crazy.
His engine is impressive, and I feel like he's got explosive potential. To have a guy who's got an engine who could also got explosive potential, he's controlled, he's got great timing, and I know you're going to come at me for this, but I feel like he commits to the run in the right ways as well for a guy who's only 240. Now there are issues to his game, hence why he's 5 for me.
Can you talk about like how scheme weighs in? So if I'm watching tape and I see a guy who I would describe as attack react, so he's so aggressive off the ball that sometimes that aggression works against him, and you'll see a run blow through that B gap where he's just tried to jump out the corner. Is that on the player, or do you think he's just following instructions and I should not, judge him poorly for runs going through his gap?
I think it's a bit of both, and that's a cop-out answer, but it's the truth.
Okay.
Because there are on run downs, you cannot be going in blind as an edge rusher. You can't be going with your head down, eyes down, exploding up, just seeing what the outside arm of the tackle's doing. You need to be able to scan and read. And if he's not doing that, that's definitely a slight on him. However, at the same time, in the college world, where if you're not winning within 1.5 seconds, you're not getting to the quarterback in time for him, because the ball is there. Unless you're on third down, like that ball is gonna be out very quickly. So you have to make quick snap decisions. Like I said, it's a bit of a cop out. Just say like why Romello Height is not a perfect prospect by any means. I feel like he's got a finishing problem. He's definitely got missed tackling issues. And
25 years old.
And he does get blown off the ball in double teams. I just think like he made good effort to try and get around those double teams, which is what you want to see in your edge rushers, in my opinion.
Yeah. Before you move on to the other one, just to summarize Height in one sentence, I said, one can picture a season where Height has 10 sacks at the NFL level, but whether he has enough tricks in the bag to produce year-on-year consistency is his main challenge heading into the pros.
I can see I definitely would prefer to see him in a group. I don't think he's going to be the guy. And if you're drafting that at the top of round 2, is that too rich? That's my estimation for him. I know a lot of people have him a lot lower than that.
I just raised the eyes there. I was thinking, I thought we're talking round 4, round 3. You're like, oh mate, if he's there at pick 55, who knows?
But then again, I feel like a lot of other players will be around a 55. So you have to obviously make sure that in your evaluation, this is how I project myself, because Alan and I have talked about this. If you don't think about yourself as a professional when you're scouting, you're doing it wrong, because it's fun. Yeah, we don't do this because we're getting paid. Yet someone holler at us. Train of thought's gone now. But basically, when you're
Parker.
So we'll go back to that anyway. With Messidor, I prefer him, but hands down. I think I had him and Ruben Bain with only 0.01 difference between them. Okay. I'm not high on Bain. He's my edge 2, but I'm not high on him compared to others. I think he's got big limitations to his game. That in other classes would push him down into the bottom half of the round 1. And I feel like if you take Messidor's best tape, it's better than Bain's. So,
interesting.
So for me, I'm very high on him, and I'm not so high on TJ Parker. I've got him around my 40th ranked overall player. Because I personally feel like he's too chaotic, and that's not the type of player I find myself having affinity towards. Yeah. I feel like he plays without the type of control that the Chargers would look for too. I think his hands are quite raw. I think he's got the ability within his body. And one thing I don't like is that his hands and his feet do not align in terms of their timing. He's not stepping and punching in sequence. They almost happen at the same time, and it leaves him in really awkward spots. But then again, you see the raw power, and that attracts you. So, but for me, in terms of the age thing, I would basically throw that off the table. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. You are trying to win a Super Bowl and raise a sustainable culture of players coming through, but you're not a rebuild team. So that plays into it here for me.
The age thing with Mesidor is whether you are concerned about his best year coming in his 6th year as a college player. He had twice the amount of pressure production than any other year he had in the previous 5. But I think there are contextual reasons why that feels okay. I mean, he was playing as a defensive tackle earlier in his career. There was some injury issues. This seemed like the first year where he was really allowed to just play off the edge and be a proper edge rusher. So I'm not actually holding that against him like I might for a different prospect. I'm interested in your take on this because I maybe saw Mesidor slightly differently, where I watched, what did I watch for him? 2 games from 2024 and 4 games from 2025. I've actually noted some similarities to Mike Green, so you might disagree, but I've actually got as question marks, slightly uncontrolled get off with some wasted movements, helmet often pointed down, eyes away from the backfield, and with hands, legs out of sync. This is the downside of his bat out of hell playing style and impacts the effectiveness of his bull rush and ability to shed and tackle in the run game. I've got his bad reps are ugly, gets stuck on linemen when he loses the initial battle, lacking some secondary pass rush moves. Also plays slightly stiff, so can't properly run the hoop to threaten the tackle's outside shoulder consistently. Contact balance towards the end of his rush can be poor and he will fall to the ground trying to bend around the edge or attempt a spin move. So I've gone pretty hard on what I saw as a bit more boom or bust in his playing style. I want to give him credit. I've got a lot of strengths as well, and he's my 3rd edge in the class. Like, the term relentless motor is overused. I think he's almost the poster child for that concept. I thought he was pretty incredible. Bane, I have right up close to the top of my board, and maybe I just got too sucked in by the splashes or just how he dominated in the biggest games of the season. I saw the short arms, but I really thought it almost helped him get into the chest in those tight quarters. I quite liked most of what I saw, played the run really well. Maybe his secondary reactions were a little more limited with him. Is that fair? Like the true ability to do something when he's initially stymied was lacking because of that arm length.
Yeah, I found that, like, whilst he had a very impressive dip and rip for his size, what is he, 275? To do that around the edge is outstanding. Hence why he's up. Still a 7.05 grade. Like, that's very good for me.
Yeah,
my 15th player overall so far. I don't like how he works inside. I feel like he labors. He doesn't pursue with the aggressiveness he does on the outside. Maybe, obviously, he's an edge rusher. That's his primary responsibility. But he has to have counters. And the biggest red flag for me of the whole film is that he was blocked quite, successfully by both tight ends and even a couple of running backs. That for me is a flag, especially at 275. I expected more power. And also people, I maintain strongly that his arm length does show up on tape. Okay. And I go in, like I said, I go in blind. I didn't see any noise when I go and watch this film, and a lot of my notes were his arm length is causing issues. So
Interesting. So the player he most reminded me of sitting and watching it all was actually Will Anderson Jr. And some people might really disagree. I saw the compact build, thoughtful rushing style. He stacked moves together, feels out his opponent patiently, then used counters during the secondary phase. And that's why I thought he kept on having that sack game after game. So I saw a guy who was a bit higher than maybe you did. But I mean, missed tackle rate was a bit higher than preferable. Arm length is a historical outlier. So you're saying you're seeing that actually show up against some tight ends and some running backs. It begs the question, with him, there are some off-field things that have surfaced. If he somehow made it to, let's say, past the Ravens, and he's starting to get to 15, 16, is he at a grade for you where you think the Chargers should consider coming up for him? I don't think he'll make it to 22, but let's say he's getting into the teens.
I don't want us to trade up for anyone in this class.
Gotcha.
So like but at the same time, the value would absolutely be there if we had more resources. Now, something I've talked about in our private chat is that I see that the third and fourth rounder for comp picks for next year and let it enable you to be more aggressive this year if you do see someone that is falling that you like, and you can use those extra third and fourth rounders. So next year we have got, if we got 10 picks, we can use 3 of those picks, be aggressive in terms of trading into this year to try and get more players for a championship window. But you are essentially, especially as like if you're in the playoffs, you're in the 20s, a comp pick in that same round is only going to be 7 picks later. So it's not like you're going, okay, it's top of the third round to the end of the third round. That's a huge difference. You just got to use what you've got, in your arsenal.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So what position? Yeah.
Let's keep things moving. But to end that discussion, we have some similarities in how we view these players. Maybe it sounds like you're higher on Bailey. We didn't get into him, but we don't need to. I'm a little higher on Bane. You're a little lower on Hal. We're both lower on Keldrick Fork. We both like Mesidor quite a lot. And we both seem to like Romello Heights, bendiness, and you're a big Gabe Akis guy. Last thing I'll ask you, I never like to do this, but I feel looking at how mock draft simulations play out for this draft and where the Chargers' needs lie, that this is a rare exception where I almost say you have to take an edge rusher with one of your 2 first picks, round 1 or round 2 in this draft. I hate saying that, Ryan, but I think this works out really badly if we're waiting until round 3 or beyond to address this position.
It's actually something I was going to bring up in our next conversation, because I feel like how the board sits this year, even though we're a best player available team as far as we know it, and the team have done their best to set up us to be best player available, if you're not taking an edge and a guard in the first 2 rounds, I feel like there are going to be roster issues as implications of that, mainly because also of who the free agents are afterwards. Anyone who's read my article on Stormcloud about how you pair together free agency post draft and the draft, you need. I feel like that's where the Chargers cap space is going to go if they don't make a veteran trade. Is that they're going to go, okay, the top 5 guys in FA as soon as the draft ends or after June 1st cuts, that we're gonna sweep those guys up. And for me, the 2 weakest positions of that whole group are edge rusher and guard. And the 2 best positions in terms of what we need to draft, edge and guard, and also the class fits to those 2 positions going off the board early. I may as well go straight into it.
Well, let's talk about guard. Let's talk about offensive line. We'll bunch them all together. Tackles, guards, and centers. Tell me what you're thinking.
I think that the first 4 guards on everyone's boards, and they should be everyone's boards. So that is Owane, Pregnon, Chase Pasontis, and Keelan Rutledge. Those guys are really good tape, and I'm a fan of all of them. I thought I was going to be the highest guy on Rutledge, but it seems like everyone else has sort of caught up. I did my guards first, so that was February.
Well, I give yourself credit. I think you're higher. Did I see that you actually have him ranked higher than Pregnon and Basontis, or did I get that wrong?
No, Pregnon's my second. I really like Pregnon's tape. And I feel like his ceiling. I know he broke out late, Al. I know he broke out late. But then again, I don't like the schools he was at. It didn't seem like he was getting the best chances. And he.
Where was he again? USC?
Yeah. And USC's scheme is always a bit funny. Anyway, but I think his pass protection is outstanding. And I feel like for a bigger guy, I did not expect him to be the run blocker he developed into this year as well. I know there are some obviously natural deficiencies to his game, as there is with everyone at that, especially at the height he is. That's what he sort of became susceptible to. So he tried to be more variable in his run blocking, and his pad level got high because of it. And I felt like sometimes he had a problem displacing, but in a zone-heavy McDaniel run scheme, that's not so much of an issue. He's not looking to displace; he's looking to cross. So cross their face, reach, block, seal. And that's what I feel like that he does. Definitely has that, especially he's so long, like 6'5". So
I've got a note. Unfortunately, not quite athletic enough to reach block consistently on outside zone runs. See multiple examples via LSU 2024, or get out in front of screens. Also, spend some time on the ground tripping over bodies around him. But look.
Sounds like bad teammates to me.
Yeah, bad
Get knocked over.
or just a bad guy watching the film. It could be either of those. A question on... So, interesting because early, you might not remember this, but I sent a few videos to you of a player asking about something, and do you think this is a problem? And you said, yes, it could be. And it actually was Pregnon. It didn't show up in his overall grades, but I've got a note. Feet in pass pro often extend beyond shoulder width, leaving him susceptible to bull rush opportunities or 3-techs crossing his face. This causes most of the pressures he allows. Now, he didn't allow very many, let's be clear. He had an incredible pass protection grade, but maybe I saw that wrong. At least it doesn't sound like that showed up enough for you where you thought at a technical level there were pass pro deficiencies.
I feel like he's definitely still growing into being a guard, which is, maybe not something you want to hear in someone who's 25 plus. But I felt like his ability to mirror, and he's so fluid and dynamic. Plus he's got a strong anchor as well.
Yep.
So I feel like all of these things trump the technical side for him. He's one of these like natural athletes. I feel like in terms of his pass pro. So yeah, in terms of the overall though, the four guys, I'm slightly lower on Brisontis than others, but I still have a second round grade on him. So down at that 55 spot is hopefully where you're going to take him. But
why were you a bit lower on Brisontis?
He's still very much learning the guard position. For those who don't know, he was a tackle up until midway through last year. And he transitioned inside, and he still plays the position like a tackle sometimes. He's not low in his stance. He sort of sometimes he, even when he's pulling, he does like really weird ways of getting his leg around. So he leans in with his shoulder a lot. But obviously, I feel like his athleticism is outstanding. Even for a tackle, it would have been outstanding. And you can see he's applying himself absolutely in the correct ways. He wants to be a guard. He's not reluctant to move in and stay there. So I do have a 6.6 grade is still very good, especially for a guard.
I liked his IQ a lot. I felt like he had good awareness of late blitzes, stunting linemen, blocking two guys on the one play. I was pretty impressed.
That was like some of. I gave him a much higher grade initially, and it just came down the more I watched him. So like I had him like close to a first round guard, because of that early tape where he was just scanning, catching. He recovers super well as well in pass pro. Which is and he's got good lower body power despite being a taller guy. So yeah, there are things that draw you in, definitely. But anyway, all of those four are really good in the class. However, between them and my next guard, who I have down at 112, so like it's a big fall for me. So I feel like that's going to come into the strategy of how you go guard and edge early.
Let's take Ioane out of the conversation, assuming he's not there. Of Rutledge, Pregnon, Brisontis, is there a guy where you say that's the best fit for Mike McDaniel's scheme?
It is Rutledge, and you'd be lying if it said it wasn't. But all three of them are really good athletes, which is important. They're not gap guys, in my opinion. I think they could do it. I feel like Pregnon could do it. I'm not so sure Brisontis could do it. A gap, like I said, I feel his pulling motion, his footwork's a bit all over the place. He could develop that, obviously, but I think Rutledge is ready made for the scheme right now. And by all accounts, he's just an outstanding person and how he applies himself. Who's it? Braden Thorne did an interview with him, and again just sung his praises. So yeah, I feel like he's got such an urgency to the way he plays as well, which is really key for me. He gets up to the second level. He's got great aiming points. He is slightly stiff. he's not like the most explosive athlete in terms of how he, like an Awane, like who is, is very close to a perfect guard in terms of his evaluation.
Yeah.
And I think he is not as good a pass protector as the other two, is the other thing. But
I think
that's less
without
important.
a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's less important in a stretch zone based scheme that's going to run a lot of play action going the other way.
I think we've seen that the same. I'm mortified to learn that I've lost all of my Rutledge notes for some reason. I must have saved over this document at some stage.
No.
But I will deal with that. But that's how I saw it as well. You saw some pass pro whiffs occasionally where you thought, okay, you see the effort and athleticism, but he's lacking a little refinement still.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that plays into the maybe the competition level with Georgia Tech. I didn't see him always face the best opponents, so that's maybe a little bit of a question mark, but cool. Hey, the attitude's certainly there. Another topic that's coming up a lot is, do the Chargers draft a tackle or a tackle to guard convert at 22, and how do you feel about that concept? Have you had a chance to watch some of these guys?
No, I was just going to say, personally, I've not watched any tackles because I focused my time very much on the positions that the Chargers needed, and I would also struggle to project how a pure tackle prospect on tape translates to a guard in terms of his skills, because they're just in completely different positions. It's not like with a nickel versus a boundary corner. For me, I can understand that and apply the differences, cross compare. But for me, when a tackle is, set pass setting and he is run blocking is very much, I've just got to win the edge here, or I've got to collapse down. It's completely different. And I feel like people get too excited when they project players to change positions, and they tend to overvalue them because of that. There's another player which we may get to talk about later, which is a corner who hasn't played in 2025, and I feel like he is wholly overrated because people got so excited about him in 2024.
Yep.
And then
talking about Jamon McCoy here for the listeners.
Yeah. They got so excited about him, they just went, okay, here he is on our rankings, and I can't change him on our rankings because I've not seen him play since. And they just sort of stick him and try, translate that across. And I feel like that can happen when the people are changing positions too. So I know you have. I was actually good at my notes are very much here saying I will defer to Al's take watch of these tackle prospects, because I feel like it's important to tell the listeners and the watchers about the ones that you see making the translation most successfully.
I think the ones who will make that transfer with ease, Spencer Fano and Francis Mauingoa from Miami. I didn't hear any talk about these guys. I'm writing up Francis Mauingoa, and I'm writing looks like a guard. Plays like a guard, phone booth type of operator. And then, lo and behold, the only guy out there who had written similar notes was Mike Renner, a guy who I just happened to value quite highly in terms of draft analysis. So, of course, you focus on those ones. And Fano's athleticism. I mean, in Mauingoa, I saw a lot of Troy Fautanu coming out of Washington, where I just thought, you move so well that you could be as good a guard as you are a tackle. I'd start him at tackle because I thought the pass pro and he was really calm the way he operated. I thought he could play the position. Same with Fano. I think I shared reps with you. The way he pulls is just crazy fast. He's just brilliant. The question with him, as I put to Stephen, was, are you a little worried about the lack of true pass pro reps in that Utah offense that didn't have a lot of true dropbacks? And he's a guy who, once he's engaged, he's fantastic, but he's just naturally got a narrower frame the way he's built. So you see inside counter moves. I think when they came up against Texas Tech, Bailey and Height both got him on some of those. And Hagelin explained that away with scheme and how they're taught to play at Utah. But I think that's at least a question mark if you're going to project him inside a guard. Is he going to be able to survive where everything happens more quickly and you have to be stronger, generally speaking, against these bigger defensive tackles?
Yeah, I think Fano comes up as someone who does come around the 22 mark sometimes, not very often. Mauingoa, for those who haven't seen, is long gone but before then.
Mate, I think Fano's going to go pick 6 to the Browns. Like, I think Fano's going to end up, when all's said and done, I think they're going to see the position flexibility, that he's still young, the athleticism, good head on his shoulders, and I think he's going to go. I think he's going to be top 15 at the worst.
So who are the guys that are left? So we've got Lomu, Freeling, Ignaccio and Proctor.
Yeah. So that's why I'm less comfortable with this idea of drafting a tackle and moving them to guard. I'm higher on Proctor than most players, but him and Freeling are just both absolutely ginormous human beings, like built in a lab. Long ass arms, 6'7", 355 pounds. Can he really play guard in a Mike McDaniel scheme? I mean, it's questionable at best.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're doing. For those who don't know, the Chargers have had quite a lot of top 30 visits with prospects of this nature, including Isaiah Weld, who's more like a third round, fourth round tackle as well. And people are starting to question, like, is this just homework? Are the injuries really bad to Alton and Slater? However, we since had an update that they're both ahead of schedule, so I'd be very surprised if that's the case. And it seems like the team's language
Would they say they're behind schedule?
No, they would just say like they're progressing well. But then again, the schedule doesn't exist in the NFL because every player's ahead of schedule. So yeah, I do get that, but I don't know. Body language, whatever we read from Ortiz. Yeah. Was there any other linemen that you want to talk about?
No, I want to stay away from the tackles, really, because let's see if they draft one. As you said, the guys who are the most natural converts in this scheme, Mauingoa and Fano, I think will be long gone. Before we move on to defensive tackle, do you think the team should address centre in this class? And if you could pick one, who would it be and where?
The team have to address centre because we have no backup. So unless there's some sort of Ethan Poach, did he get signed in the end? Free agent, backup, veteran. I don't like that market any season. I feel like it's always tapped out. So anyone who's left over is really tapped out. And I feel like you draft and develop, especially when you've got someone on a 3-year deal, right? We've got Biadash. So for me, I feel like if you want to go down and we've only got 5 picks. I think we will only address centre if we trade down, or if we trade for a future pick or something like that. I love Logan Jones. I just don't want to be drafting him, end of the second, early third, like he's probably going to go. I know you're a big Sam Heck guy. I like Sam Heck.
I'm way too high on him, aren't I? I've got him as like a top 30 player. It's unreal. I just didn't see many of the bad reps except against Lee Hunter for Texas Tech, who was just too strong for him. So Heck does lack mass, but I couldn't believe his strength and power for a guy who lacked mass. And then the movement skills to me were as good as anyone, including Logan Jones. So I really liked what he could bring, particularly in an outside zone scheme. Yeah.
If we are drafting a backup, for me, I'd probably say Parker Brailsford. I know he's undersized, but I think his tape was really, really fun, and he moves so well.
I didn't watch him, so he's the Alabama long-time center. Yes. What are his measurables? Do you know roughly?
Off the top of my head, no, I've got it here. So he's 6'2", 290, so not far off Logan Jones, but he looks smaller on tape. Logan Jones, I felt like his size wasn't so much of an issue because he could take on bigger guys and survive. He sometimes you got thrown around if he took a bad angle, but in terms of his core strength, I thought it was there. With Parker, he sometimes gets ball rushed, but again, if you're going sideways straight after the snap, it's not as easy to do that. His ankle wasn't as strong. He didn't get good kick out in the run game on gap blocks. But his mental command of the game is outstanding. There are many, many times on tape where he calls out the blitz from a player you didn't see coming. He's like Amazon Prime, what was it, Prime Vision, the red dots. He's like, yeah, they're coming, adjust the protection. He's got fantastic hand usage, works really well in combination blocks, and gets to the second level quickly. And he's really good in terms of recovery. He can lose his anchor, but he can get back and recover before he gets into the quarterback's lap. So for a guy like that, you can get him on day 3. I've got a round 3 grade on him. So I felt like he presents an option. Now, some of the other guys, I've heard a lot about, what's his name? Trazen from Texas A&M and Brian Parker. Trazen played sometimes at center, mostly at both tackle spots. He's never played guard. So if anyone wanted to use him as a backup guard, it would be a new venture for him. But I did not like his center tape at all. I felt like he looked like a tackle playing center, and that's never good. He's got quite high legs for the position as well. And
so he's not Gray Zabel or some of these guys, Graham Barton.
No. And Brian Parker, again, people really early in the process as well were raving about him in terms of his move inside. I didn't see that on tape but then again, I'm only watching it as a tackle. He didn't do any center tape, any guard tape. So it's again, he was the one guy, because I heard so much noise, I wanted to have a look at. I didn't do enough to do a full report, but I did want to understand what the hype was there. And then Pat Coogan, I don't like his tape, but intangibles.
Indiana.
Yeah. I really should do that more often.
Two-man show, dude. Two-man show.
I didn't like his tape, but to be the intangible leader on a championship winning team, that fairy tale story, you might want to invest in that, especially if it's a backup. He's got the size and the mass for it as well. So yeah.
Okay, that sounds like the Jack type of character. Cerebral, win upstairs before you win downstairs. Oh, that didn't quite come out right. So putting a bow on that on the line. So Ryan thinks this is a position we need to address early if we can. Another view would be that this regime is comfortable with taking a different approach to guard, perhaps where they do sign Batonio after the draft, or are only going to address guard if they really love the guy. Perhaps they're thinking Cole Strange can be a backup center and you don't actually need to carry a guy who's a center only prospect. I would say.
Well, then we're stealing another body in the room, so that means so. Otherwise, you're one play. Then you're looking at the 6th round pick. What's his name last year? Branson Taylor. He had to step into being the swing guard.
Yes.
So it's quite. You've only got 9 guys in the room, especially on a team where we're going to need a lot of other roster positions. They may even trim down to 8 if they can survive with someone on the practice squad. So that strategy does pose risk to me, and I don't think Batonio is a scheme fit.
Yes, okay.
No. So, and he's the only available guard left that would be able to be starting. So, did Glasgow officially retire? He did, didn't he? I think so.
Not sure.
But yeah, there are, for me, like I said earlier, the free agency dictates that we have to draft a guard and early. So, yeah.
And with 5 picks, whether they choose to address a center or not, we'll find out. Maybe more likely if they manage to acquire an additional pick by trading down. But you've all heard some of the players that we both like there. All right, we'll be a little shorter with defensive tackle. I think it's because it's a little bit of a shorter class in terms of overall quality, Ryan. Maybe what do you think about some of these guys around the top of the defensive tackle grouping? And I got a feeling there's a guy that we both like very, very much that I've spoken about a lot already.
And I will join you in that chorus because let's just say this clearly: Peter Woods is a top 5 player in this draft, and I don't think that's contentious.
It is contentious. People have him as
I know. I don't. No.
Thing, so
look. Yeah,
it sounds like teams don't have him that high either. If you listen to Jeremiah,
or it's fake season. Are people just going like, okay, if we discredit him widely enough, maybe he falls to us at 22. Maybe we're even in on those games. Like, it's lying season. Like, I don't understand how you can watch Peter Wood's tape and say, yeah, mate, I'm worried about his athletic testing because he nails every if you watch it and if you watch his tape and think, he's not that athletic, I don't know what you're watching. He's so quick, so smart, so strong. As well, he can attack, he can resist. He's also one of those guys who I found it quite outstanding. Defensive tackles don't normally turn around to their linebackers and tell them what to do. Yeah, it's always the other way around. It's a tap on the bum and something like that. He will stand up, scan the play, see the formation change, and be like, it's going this way, everyone this way. Like, and he's so switched on. Screens don't fall him. Like, double passes. And to do that and play fast, as Al said, to be able, like earlier, if you get your head up and you just go, that's easy. If you're athletic, you'll win that way, but you will also lose that way. With him, he can do both, which is just a really rare trait for a player. And as Al has said many times, if Mason Graham can go top 5, then there is absolutely zero reason why Peter Woods couldn't, because he's a better prospect.
Love it. Okay. I love. We are complete outliers on this topic. I will be really surprised if he goes top 15 because
I don't think he's going. I don't think he's going, but I love judging by what I'm hearing. But
yeah. But I've got no precedent I can think of for a draft where there's a guy who there's no buzz about going top 10, 15 and goes 10, 15. I feel like you at least hear something from DJ or Matt Miller or whoever else out there. Is there something we don't know about? I'm not sure because he seems like a guy who loves football from his interviews. Maybe they've got more intel. The short arms is definitely a thing at 31.25 inches. Did you see that showing up at all on tape, Ryan? Did you see him struggling with double teams and always looking to swim around because of that lack of mass or length?
and definitely not. And for me, there is quite an obvious one in terms of as a defensive tackle, you can't get around that. I mean, it's stupid to compare him to Aaron Donald because nobody's Aaron Donald. But if you play with that kind of leverage, if you are able to play inside and you're able to resist double teams, so he does the drop knee, bend, get down in between, resist. He does try to swim once he's got through the gap, and like that, some of his weaknesses came in like the fact that he does this annoying thing where he'll rotate his shoulders too far and too quickly. So that means he presents an opportunity to be washed down in that direction. And it's more about how he wins at the top of blocks where his arms show up. So I'm not worried about him resisting in terms of giving up ground. And I know when he gets through, he's able to rip through. He's got enough power and speed to get through there. But at the top of blocks, when he gets into a stack, he's kind of fixed. Yeah. He doesn't have the ability to get off because he's got someone who's got control of his chest plate because they've got longer arms, and he hasn't got the ability to get over or under their grip.
Do you worry at all about the lack of pass rush production, win rate, or are you seeing schematic reasons why those numbers are a bit lower? Or you just don't care about those numbers?
I don't. If they present something that's startling, then fair enough. But if you watch his tape and think he's not winning often enough, that's just I don't know how you get there. He wins consistently. Whether that win leads to something is different. So
well, let me try go anti-Woods, right? You're wanting to spend a first round pick, and first round defensive tackles, we want to see them finishing and actually affecting the passing game to really warrant that kind of pick. Otherwise, we'll take you in round 2 or round 3. He has 6 career sacks from 35 games, 3 seasons. That pass rush win rate this year was around 10%, 10.5%. For tackles, the closer you get it to 15 and above is what you typically want to see from elite pass rushers from the 3-tech. How do you respond to that? Why am I spending a top 15 pick, Ryan, on a guy who's had 6 sacks?
I mean, you can go back and look at any outlier, especially if you look at Clemson. So Dexter Lawrence, the guy who got traded, he had very little production, and I feel like Clemson, Clemson tend to want a guy who can do everything and be an athlete while doing it, but maybe not necessarily lead to individual stats. It's the team as a whole. Sometimes you watch a Clemson game and you're like, I don't know how they're winning because they're not doing anything. They're just surviving. But that's because they've got really
this year they didn't win.
No, of course not. I meant, but
that's been a trope for their players for a while now, right? Miles Murphy, Cleveland Farrell. There are some teams that I just hate evaluating when I look at the way they're used. Texas A&M comes to mind as another one. Auburn is actually another one. I felt Keldrick Falk. He's seeing a lot of reps at the 4-eye. Yeah, Penn State.
I hate Penn State players, man. Like, not hate them in terms of that. I just hate evaluating because they're always superior athletes, but they don't give them any direction in terms of technical ability. They're like, hey, fast guy, go fast. And that's it. That's all they do all game. Like Zane Durant.
Robinson just flying off the 9.
Yeah. Yeah, Zane Durant, Dennis Sutton did not like his tape in one bit, but might turn into a great player. So yeah, going back into edges. Sorry.
No, okay. So Peter Woods, we both really like him. It sounds like if he was there at 22, we'd forget the needed edge and we'd actually just run the card.
I'd run the card in. Yeah, run the card.
Yeah, I agree. What about? I'm going to skip over some guys like Lee Hunter and Banks and McDonald because I think they're probably going to fall between where we pick all of them.
Hunter definitely. Banks might fall because of his injury, so he might.
Would you take a risk on Banks with pick 55 if the team addresses interior offensive line or edge at 22? Is Banks worth it at 55?
The way I've dealt with Banks in terms of I do a lot of mock drafts at the time. I don't publish any of them. It's more for my process and my thinking. With Banks, it's more if we manage to get a third pick in the top sort of 60, 70 through trade downs. Or trade up or trade QJ or something like that, then I'd consider him as that extra resource that we weren't maybe expecting. So that when it comes to Banks, I'm fine with that. But yeah, in terms of Hunter, I've never come across him in a single mock draft where he falls around a pick that we're taking. I do really like his tape.
Girthy human. Some of the stuff, like the quick wins on his tape are just incredible. When he gets it right and he's into the backfield and he actually just grabs a guy and throws him around. There's some Vince Wilfork, I thought, to at least some of those reps.
Yeah. And then, further down, if you like, I think there's some day 3 value to be had. So I really like,
because I haven't watched any of those guys. So
I really like
day
Albert.
3.
Yeah. I really like Albert Regis. So he is at
A&M.
Yeah, I thought it was A. I was trying to remember which of the he's at A&M. As I mentioned earlier, really like Xavier Harris, but he's got some off-field issues. And I also liked a guy I've not seen anyone else watch. So it's his name is Keanu Tunavasa out of BYU. I only watch about a game and a half of his.
You posted about him, right? On X?
No, that's the next guy, Rene Conger. So yeah, Rene Conger at Louisville, he's a really fun watch. Like he has some explosive highlights. And Zane Durant, I didn't necessarily like him because he was ranked really highly on the consensus that I downloaded. Draft Tech to give you like a whole spreadsheet that you can download of top 400 players, but I download that in February, and then by the time I get to it, like it gets to this time of year, it's way out of whack with normal consensus. Zane Durant was really high, he was like 120, so I didn't like him there. But as the stock he is at now, which is a day 3 player, I think he's really good. He flashes on tape consistently at Penn State. So he is I don't even know if he's 6 foot. He is small. Let me see if I've got him. So he's listed at 6.5 foot. 288 pounds. He's got a ridiculous get off, and he pops all the time. He reads lateral flow, so he can get across reach blocks. He's got fantastic angle, the ability to get around those blocks as well. But he gets blown off the ball so much. So he's only a gap shooter. But if you're looking for something down low, that's a guy to go for, in my opinion. If you did miss out on Peter Woods, because to go from 22 to like 3 guys and then it's like day 3, that's a really fraught strategy. If you needed to then tackle in this draft, that's why I'm feeling Peter Woods might go higher than people suspect as well.
Yeah, me too, because of that drop off. It sounds like we're thinking if the Chargers are going to take a defensive tackle, it's more likely to be your gap shooting type who maybe brings some pass rush upside. So you've mentioned a couple of guys, some people like Grayson Holton out there from Oklahoma, others like, I think his name's Caleb Proctor.
Grayson Holton, by the way, unfortunately, watch his Senior Bowl tape, he got absolutely dominated. Blown off the ball. Really not good. Like the type of stuff that takes him off people's boards. So unless he was carrying an injury, which I haven't heard about. So be wary of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We have dealt with the big positions, the big nasties out front. For the last half an hour of the show, we're going to run through some positions that maybe aren't as much of a need, but they're the fun positions. They're the Rolls Royce, and importantly, they're the guys on the defensive side Ryan knows really well. Let's talk some corners and safeties, man. I'll chip in with thoughts as we go. Some things I look at with corners, I'm looking at technique. Are they calm and do they trust it? Their downfield targets, do they get grabby? Athletic ability is something I think really matters more at this position than some other positions, depending on what scheme you're in. Maybe scheme can protect athleticism a bit, but corners have to be able to run, generally speaking, carrying verticals if they have to. And then IQ, reading it out, pattern match coverages. Are there times where it looks like two guys are covering the one player and a dude is wide open? Tell us some things you're looking for at this position, and then lead us into a discussion of some of the prospects in this class.
So with corners, you say athleticism, and for me, that's not your. Are you a 4-3-6 guy? Are you a 4-4-5 guy? Because look at Kamari Laster, 4-6-7 or whatever it was. Yeah, and go watch the wild card game against Chargers. Like nobody could get, like Lam McConkey couldn't get off him. So for me, that's not where the athleticism it accounts for me. It's about your hip mechanics. So how do you get from a back pedal into a sprint in an efficient manner whilst being under control of the route? So understanding, your hand placement with that. How do you turn? Do you speed turn? Do you zone turn? Speed turn is when you turn with the player, so you go around. So that's also known as man turn or baseball turn. And the zone turn is when you let them go behind your hips, you fall in under them. Variable techniques is a big one for me. So do you use the same techniques all the time? Is it simply, are you pressing and jamming and then getting in tight and then riding? Or are you able to bail off? Are you able to trail? Can you play catch technique?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So like these are things that I look for, and my notes are always much more detailed at corner. I coached it because I understand what actually matters in terms of because people will be like, oh, ball production. I honestly, they're very I've said this to my players as well. Good for you, got an interception. Most interceptions, like thinking of football with an analysis of how do interceptions happen. Most interceptions are quarterback mistakes. In terms of they didn't pass to the right route, so it's just about can you get the ball. Look at what's his name, Trayvon Diggs from the Cowboys, Deron Bland from the Cowboys. Cowboys seem to have a type is that guys can get to the ball and not do anything else. Who's the Nation Wright? These are not standout corners. They have insane interception ability, but it's not a trait I'm anywhere close to valuing.
Well, it's certainly not a trait if you're also giving up multiple touchdowns through your aggressiveness. I mean, if you can be a plastic corner and then also pick the ball off, that's when you're an all-pro for the position. But you're telling us it's not something you're focusing on front and center, how often they're picking it off.
No, and something so I was incredibly high on Sauce Gardner, which I still believe was the right evaluation. But it has dawned on me during that process and looking at prospects over the last couple of years since, is that I used to overvalue guys who could lock down press man corners. Yeah, it's not where the league is anymore. Yeah, it's a quarters league. Still technically cover 3 is still the heaviest coverage in the league. But I think that's more about how it's measured. I think like people mistake cover 3 for other coverages. So that, and if that's the case, then you need to focus, your resources on analyzing the players who are going to be giving you the coverages. The types of traits you want to see in the coverages you're going to run the most.
Do you think the league is it chicken or egg though? Do you think the league is running those coverages because they don't have the cattle who can play reliable man coverage? And then when you do find those guys like Houston, you're playing a lot more of it because you do have Lassiter and Stingley. Or do you just think the league is so keen on stopping explosives that they prefer the umbrella and guys off coverage?
Well, chicken and egg again. Do you think Houston are playing cover 1 because they've got the best corners, or do you think they're playing cover 1 because they've got the best pass rush?
Yeah, that's a good response. It's probably could be a combo.
it needs to be a cohesive strategy as a whole picture. And I feel like quarters is the answer to people like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, who are just absolute freaks. And you it's better to as Jesse Minter has proven quite outstandingly, if you just protect against the explosive pass and have solid structure everywhere else, cough Brandon Staley. If you solid everywhere else, then you will have success in this league. You give your offense the enough opportunities to get the ball back, and that's what the pipeline of corners coming into the league now. They're mature zone corners, and you see that. So I may as well get into it. But I think Keith Abney is an outstanding zone corner. So that's the guy out of Arizona State. So
I've watched half a game, and he's a guy I want to finish before Friday.
Please do, because his tape is so enjoyable. His instincts are fantastic. He supports the run in exactly the right ways. He falls off pattern matches, like variable techniques.
Can he hold up outside it? I think he's 5'9.5" or something like that, unless I've got that totally wrong.
I thought it was taller than that, but let's have a look. Well,
it says something if it hasn't like stuck in your mind.
No, you're right. So he's 5'10". I think he plays much bigger than he is. Like 195 as well. You know
Okay.
And this isn't a tall corner class. Even like the guys who were seen as like the lockdown man corners. I think there's only one guy. So Mansell Delane is 6'1". Then you're all the way down to like Takario Davis and Julian Neal. Who are like bottom of round 3 guys for your size. So. And the other guy who I'm very high on is Avian Terrell out of Clemson. Brother of AJ Terrell. I think he's taken everything his bigger brother was and he's embodied it in very good ways. When I say bigger, he was also physically bigger. Avian Terrell's only 5'11", 180. But he plays a lot bigger. He loves the run game. Side of things. Alan and I have a slight disagreement. He watched some 24 tape whereby he wasn't committing fully to some tackles, but in 25 I felt like he fixed that, and it was assertive in how he approached things.
Terrell is your cornerback 1 in this class. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that. So first I want to say I loved his movement skills. I thought they were fluid. I thought he had the requisite feistiness. He liked the physicality of one-on-one matchups. He was cerebral. He had flexibility to play inside and blitz off the edge. I liked a lot of what I saw. He's a bit like McCoy for me, where that 2025 film is just a little harder to evaluate when the team's not so good. He's not grading as highly. He's not producing as much. I had some issues in 2024 with some things that reminded me of Will Johnson in the playoffs when he faced Marv Harrison Jr. Terrell gave up 2 15-plus yard DPIs trying to cover Matthew Golden in that playoff game in 2024, where he just panicked and grabbed and pulled him down 40 yards downfield, and he was penalized 7 times that year. He brought that way down in 2025, but when I see a guy who I thought trusts his technique in the short and intermediate range, and then the further you get downfield, he does grab or he stops his feet. I saw a bit more of that with Terrell than maybe you did. Did you identify any of that at all, or you thought he was pretty much awesome all around?
No, obviously he's got negatives. Obviously he'll be an 8.0 perfect player. And open field tackling for me was the biggest one. He approaches it in the right way. He's just not long enough or strong enough to execute in the way that he wants to. A coach will probably have to rebuild that technique if he wanted to fix that sort of bad habit. He coverage judgment flagged a couple of times for me. He passed off route. I don't know if it was a Clemson thing, but he passed off routes too quickly and then covered grass. I hate that. That's a big pet peeve of mine.
There are a few guys in this class who do that.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah.
Just to explain for the listeners, I've got a note of this kind of thing. When you've got a guy drifting towards the end zone and you see an intermediate dig route, an in-breaker, and you see instead of the corner breaking square, they're more worried about protecting their deep third, or they're giving too much cushion and they're allowing easy comebacks or hinge routes. Is that the kind of stuff you're talking about?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Like, so it's normally from cover 3. So it's either like, do I carry this dig, because a dig versus cover 3 is going to be open because the safety is usually bailing off, and the corner is like, oh, he's going out of my zone. I'm just going to stay off this hash mark, and it's usually open. Depending on what else is going around it, you need your middle linebacker to drop deep enough, which they don't.
So the corner's not meant to change to man at that point and follow the dig.
Depends on how it's coached. Yeah, this is the big thing. So I've coached in systems whereby it's pure zone, stick to it, stick to everything else, worry about your job, not everyone else's. And then pattern matching is whereby, no, as soon as he breaks, there's no one else threatening you, you drive on that. Even if you're not going to get there, you may get in there for a second punch out opportunity or something like that. And then also with Terrell, he did not play much man. That's just the Clemson system. So that's obviously a flag, because even if he's in a zone system, the heaviest zone systems in the league will still play 35% man. So,
yeah, they had a bit of soft squat cover 2 stuff at Clemson that I don't think you see as much in the NFL these days.
No, it gives them opportunities that I don't like. That I felt like that with Brandon Cisse actually. So okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like we actually see the player quite similarly. Like, I thought Terrell's lighter frame, naturally there will be some unfavorable matchups against prototypical X receivers.
But then again,
and he gives up a fade touchdown against LSU this year. He gets boxed out on a jump ball fade. And I thought, this is maybe not going to be your jam.
Completely. I definitely get that here. I definitely get that. But then again, one of my favorite prospect evaluations ever, Devon Witherspoon, was the same size. Coming out of Illinois, yeah.
Those tackling reps though were just incredible.
Oh no,
with a spoon, you know.
Yeah,
but you're right. So, I take the point. I want to take you in a different direction. We'll get to a couple of Chargers fits, but what's interesting, like Mansour Delane's one of the favorite corners I've watched since I've been doing this, which is not a long time. The thing that I think most attracted me to his game was just the controlled athlete who glides across the field. He thinks he's confident he can cover the receiver, whatever they do. So I saw a guy who is pretty good off press alignment with a smooth back pedal and this springiness to transition into deep speed. But then in off coverages, I thought he was also pretty close to elite. And used his body to stay on top of vertical routes really nicely with some of that catch technique we were discussing earlier. Never going to be a great tackler, but he's willing, lighter framed corner. So similar stuff to Terrell at 187 pounds. The one negative I've got is the same one we discussed. Playing the deep third, I thought his eagerness to watch the quarterback and help the middle of the field safety can leave open some deep comeback routes to the sideline. That sort of stuff.
He has a bad habit of watching the quarterback for too long. As in, like, he will keep his eyes trained on the quarterback for too long in zone coverage. I feel like he'd probably more be like for example, there was a play against Clemson where he fell for a really bad head fake. Yeah. And also, I know this sounds silly, but considering he's an SEC player, I thought the corners he faced were all terrible. The wide receivers he faced. I don't remember. The games I watched. So I think I watched 3 or 4. And I didn't see him face anyone that gave him trouble, and also the ball didn't go his way. That's a great trait for a corner, obviously, but it's also
targeted only 35. Here's the stat, listeners: targeted only 35 times in 2025. Never allowed multiple receptions to any single player in any game this season. 1 catch he's given you per PFF, but you're saying maybe there's a skill issue there. I saw him play a couple of Ryan Williams.
It's not a skill.
Yeah. But Ryan Williams got him a couple of times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, it's not necessarily that, like, it's not being thrown as a fantastic quality in your corners. You never want to hear your corner's name in a game ever. Like, if you forget they exist, they're a good corner. Like, but my issue is he wasn't tested enough for me to do an evaluation that's proper.
Got it.
So that's where my sort of limitation with him comes up. Quickly, I'm just going to mention that I know we both love Chris Johnson. So really, really
San Diego State.
Corner. Local kid. Has he got a local visit? I'm sure he has. Yeah. But yeah, so it's freak athlete as well. What was his RAS? I think it was like 9.83. 6 foot 195. I thought he could play man or zone. I wasn't worried. I think he's a man corner primarily. He's got every technique in his bag. That's what I really love. And he's super comfortable playing in trail, which is a show of how fast he is as well. He'll let a player beat him because he knows that he's got Stacey top over the help. And he knows that if he goes into trail, he can fall off and pick up any crosses. And that's a really smart player too. I gave him a 6.91, which is end of round 1. And I still think I might be too low on him. So I really enjoyed his tape.
I did as well. If he's there in round 2 for whatever reason, I'm thinking really carefully about taking him. I know need comes into this discussion, but the question marks around him are all about the Mountain West standard of quarterback play. It's atrocious. He looks to me like he can take the leap to the next level. I mean, I tried to watch him playing better opposition like Washington State, like Cal. You just, at a certain point, you need to trust the combination of athleticism, technique. You're not seeing mistakes. You're seeing that he disguises blitzes well. You see he's triggering quickly, a willing tackler from off coverage. I didn't really say anything not to like other than that, 30.5-inch arms. One example where he couldn't climb the ladder with a 6'3" receiver. I mean, you're going to have some losses.
I had that. So, yeah, I don't think he's great at the catch point in terms of, like, if they go at 50-50, it's not 50-50 with him. He's a bit too light up there. Also, again, he had a bit of a timing issue in terms of going an off man. So, again, that thing we talked about where he's backpedaling too early. He doesn't let the receiver close the space to him with a feel for tempo and spacing, and he just doesn't quite get it. But do you know who else had that big problem? Cooper DeJean. He was horrendous at that at Iowa, and it was the reason I did the whole evaluation for Thinking Football, which means I watched every game of his for 2 years, and that was a repeated problem. KLS, go back and watch their matchup in, what was it, 2023. KLS torched him on those, but look at him now. Probably the best nickel in the game. So these things can be overcome.
Yeah. Are there any other corners you want to talk about, either like being a great scheme fit? I watched Traden Stukes fairly late, the older corner from Arizona, probably a big nickel at the next level. I saw him doing a lot of the stuff that Derwin does. Is there anyone you want to talk about before we move on to safeties? I mean, Jamod McCoy, we both said that we've got some little issues with him. If he's there at 22, it doesn't sound like he will be. But what do you think about that?
No, I feel like the league values him a lot higher than I do. I feel like there was a good amount that I've got him as a sort of low towards the end of a second round grade on him. And I feel like he's also a liability against the run, and Chargers don't tend to draft with players who are liabilities against the run. So I don't necessarily feel like he'll be on our boards.
Did you agree? I'll read my first 4 question marks with him. The strengths are, size, long speed, and press jam technique. He does a lot of the man cover stuff you're looking for a potential shutdown corner in those areas. But my question marks were stutter steps and diamond releases at the line can cause him problems. Quickness isn't as good as his long speed, and he allows slant completions. For the same reason, he's not as comfortable in off coverage. A few issues too with zone match recognition, left chasing tail, can also leave too soft and underneath cushion. He will grab if beaten during the initial route phase, doesn't remain calm following early losses, lacks enthusiasm as a tackler, plays the part, feinting to shake his blocker, but is more interested in corralling than enforcing near the boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even when he gets into tackles, I don't like his technique. He doesn't break down at all. He's just aiming at ankles and seeing what happens. So that's a lot of corners. So I'm not going to sit here and say that's like undraftable qualities.
No. Too much agreement between us, Ryan. I
know. Right.
Our thumbnail for this photo is the boxing, but it seems like we've seen a lot of the same. This guy he'll take the ball away if you challenge him one-on-one, deep down the field. He does that well.
Yeah. There are positions where we have disagreements. We sort of compared notes before this.
Yeah.
And I think wide receivers have got a couple of them.
Okay, we'll get to them shortly. Tell us about safety. Would you go with like the big ones people would consider in round one? We're not expecting Caleb Downs to be there from Ohio State. I certainly would take him if he was there. He's a top 10 player for me comfortably.
Yeah, you guys got him in your mock. I was like, what?
What? The other two are Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, who may be there, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo, who also is, I think, is likely to be there at 22. What did you think about those two players, and for what the Chargers need under a new DC?
I watched the whole safety class at the beginning of 2024. So this class, because I was doing a piece for someone, and I had like all of these guys that we just went through, and Kamari Ramsey grouped at the top of the grouped at the top of there, and that projection has kind of stayed in place for the most part. I really liked Thieneman then, and now I really like him. I haven't done my write up on him, but I feel like he does everything. And I've done one every team mock, and I've put him to the Vikings, and it's the perfect fit to replace Harrison Smith, in my opinion. He does absolutely everything so well. He's so good in coverage out in the slot. Oh, he shuts down. If you go check your best slot receivers, and check their stats against Oregon. He complete, and it's not just like, okay, he locks them down in man coverage. No, he's spot dropping, and then he's getting into passing windows. He's jamming, not letting people up the seams. Super athletic, super fast. And the crazy thing was when he was at Purdue, he played in a car park. I'm not even joking. Go look at the Purdue tape.
Oh, yeah.
He was like 40 yards off the ball. It was starting. It was crazy. Just such a weird system. And then Oregon went, yeah, we'll have some of that. It was like great projection on their part, and he's awesome.
And he's another one of these plays with full effort on every play kind of guys. It stands out on film. He'll run halfway across the field just to try and make a tackle. He's got no chance of ever making. He's one of those kind of guys.
Yeah. Communicating as well, really good communicator. McNeil Warren, see him more.
Before you go on, because this is not a disagreement. So Thieneman, I've actually got one player below Chris Johnson from San Diego State. So Thieneman's my 27th ranked player, and you're speaking about him, effusively. The only thing with him, and I don't know how much to read into it, because I felt this way about Cooper DeJean as well, and he's ended up being a superstar, but I thought change of direction ability was a bit below average, and that hips were a little stiff, and that could hurt him in coverage. And I also thought it hurt him with running backs, and that they could juke him a little bit in the open field. So I think he's a great athlete, straight line speed. I kind of liked him as a big nickel, but I thought that lateral agility and quickness was not what I expected for a guy who's only 6 foot. I thought he looked more like a 6'2" guy.
Yeah,
that came out to me anyway. Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
How would you use him? Would you play him is he a big nickel? Is he a center fielder?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I don't think he'd fit us very well, because he'd have too much crossover with Derwin as that big nickel. So and that's
so you don't like him as a single high safety necessarily.
No, he that's where he came from, but I prefer him much patrolling the apexes, especially in the sort of the Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald sort of scheme. He'd be going up and down those apexes, may not be from a top down perspective, may not fit him. And McNeil Warren, definitely too much overlap with Derwin for me to pick him at 22. 6'2", 200 pounds, plays bigger. 9.0 RAS, and yeah, he sniffs out everything that comes out in his direction. Again, not a full write up on safety for me, but obviously my experience watching him has been a fun one, because when you're watching someone from Toledo, you don't necessarily think they're going to be a potential first rounder. What were your notes on him?
Type of DB that NFL GMs like to bet on. He's got size, length, good athleticism, and a knack for making plays around the ball with 11 forced fumbles. Aspects of his game require some refinement. His tackling technique's a little questionable, and sometimes he gambles reading run pass, allowing explosive plays. Although Toledo lined him up most often as a deeper safety, in the era of the big nickel, this is where teams may envision him fitting in their team. Hoping to develop the rawer parts of his game over time, he has a high enough ceiling and the flashes on tape that usually translate into a top 50 pick despite competition level concerns. Do you think safety is going to be addressed in this class? Is it a need? Is it a day 3 thing? It sounds like they're thinking about it, but we saw RJ Mickens play pretty well. We've got Elijah Molden. We've got Tony Jefferson. What is your take on that?
I think they will address it. It's just a matter of, do they see this as a starter or do they see this as a special teamer type person, a player? It's literally like round 1 or 2 or round 7 for me, or undrafted. Sorry, like I don't see anything in between. I don't see a mid-round safety pick, and I don't really like the mid-round safeties in this class.
Are you critical if the team takes either of those higher ranked safeties at pick 22?
Yeah, yes, I am. Because of the opportunity loss it creates at edge and guard, and subsequently all the other positions off the back of that. Because you therefore probably have to make a decision like, we can't take a tight end, we can't take a corner, those sort of things.
Yep, me too. All right, to round off the show. First, I want to talk about one linebacker, and then we're going to talk about wide receiver and tight end, because the Chargers don't really need to address linebacker. The room is full, but Sonny Styles is a guy who I think universally is viewed as a top 5 player. I've got him as my 13th ranked linebacker. Are you a super
13th ranked linebacker?
Sorry. 13th ranked player.
Like, whoa, hot
13th
take.
ranked player, which kind of like adjusts a little for positional value. It's unscientific, but I do make little tweaks based on the position they play. But I have him as the same grade for whatever reason at Jacob Rodriguez for Texas Tech, which could end up looking stupid. Are you super high on Sonny Styles? What did you see from that player?
I've not watched
linebackers. Oh dear. Okay.
Do you know how frustrating it is to hear Arvel Reese, Sonny Styles, like all of these guys, and everyone's talking about how incredible they are, Jacob Rodriguez as well, and I'm not watching them because our linebacker room is chock full.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like,
all right.
We've got no room like for that, so like it is as a time purpose. It's been a decision.
I'll get my take. I'll get my take out there. When I'm talking about a top 5, top 10 pick, I want to see tape that blows me away, right? And I think with Styles, it is a little more of a projection that because he's 21 and 6'5" and the best athlete you've ever seen for the position, they're projecting that he's going to hit that extreme outcome and be the next Fred Warner. And if you look at his strengths, I do think his coverage reps are unbelievable, because at that length he can be the whole player in Tampa too. He can get to the flats. He does a lot of stuff really well, spot dropping. He's just a big presence that gets his arms in the way. If you ask me, like, I thought his actual instincts and key diagnose were a tick late for a guy who's being talked about as a generational kind of prospect. If I think of Jahad Campbell, Edgerrin Cooper, even Arvel Reese playing next to him in this scheme, and this is where you can come in even though you haven't watched him, he doesn't make a lot of plays in the run game. Like, he has some sacks, but he gets stuck on blockers. I heard PFF saying his raw production profile is like the 47th percentile for first round linebackers. If you just look at tackles, pressures, PBUs, interceptions. And I saw all of his tackles happening 5 or 7 yards past the line of scrimmage. He's 6'5" and he's great at block take on. At 6'5" naturally, and I saw this with Peyton Wilson from NC State, sometimes your ability to actually make the tackle is compromised because you're so tall and your legs are maybe a little bit thinner. So I was saying, hey, he's not swimming around blockers and making plays around or near the line of scrimmage. He's just that guy who's smacking the guard and maybe allowing other players to do that kind of stuff. And then he's a monster in coverage. Do you get concerned if you see a linebacker who's being talked about as a top 10 pick and maybe they're not that impactful in a raw, like, tackling role?
Yeah, I mean, tackling isn't the be-all and end-all. It's more about how you process and diagnose. For me, like, so if he isn't reading and anticipating from his perch spot, if his read step is not clean, if he's not pursuing with the right tempo, if he's just harrowing off and just making sure that his teammates are playing contain, if he's just trying to tear off and get to the sideline to be the first there, that's not valuable. What is valuable is I need to have a feel for space. Kuechly was incredible at that. He would pace himself, even though he knew the play was coming, even though he would pace himself to be the perfect impact on that and have coverage. He'd trust in his teammates, but he'd also do his job well. If what you're alluding to is that he may not be getting the production because he's not seeing it early enough, that is something that would absolutely give me pause.
Well, you might have to take away some homework for after the draft to just watch at least
It is after the draft for me. Yeah, that's.
I will say
yeah.
The game that he put, like everything came together for him, was the Big Ten championship game against Indiana. In that game, he did everything, and I said, if that's the play you're getting, that's a top 10 pick. So I think that's why. I think he'll go. That was the end of the 2025 season. He's 21. He's 6'5". He runs like the Dickens. Chargers thankfully don't need a linebacker, and there wouldn't be one at 22 that you'd want to tack. Okay, wide receiver, tight end. Talk to me, man. Maybe this time we can start with disagreements, because you've done a little comparison about players we don't see the same. Is there anyone you want to just dive straight in and talk about?
Well, first of all, I will say that I haven't watched tight ends. That is this week's assignment. So, yeah.
Haven't watched who, sorry?
Tight ends. So that group is for, this week for me. Sure. I've got some good focus days coming up. So, yeah, that will be super fun for me. Now, quick one I wanted to bring up about this, by the way. I haven't watched tight ends. However, I've left them last for a reason. People were kind of assuming that we draft a wide receiver over a tight end, and it will be the other way around. A tight end will be drafted before a wide receiver in terms of priority for this offense. Okay. So think about it in terms of your 21 and your 12 personnel. There's only 2 receivers on the field. Yep. In those sets. We've got 4 right now. Obviously, we haven't made any sort of trades in terms of trading QJ away like the rumors are swirling about. So if you're 4 strong there, but then in your 12 personnel, you've got 2 tight ends on the field. We've only got 2 tight ends, so we definitely need a third one. Can't play 13 personnel without that. So don't be surprised if we see one go higher to us. And Al, do you have any that you like of that?
I've only watched 4 of them because I deprioritized it like you. I'm interested though in what archetype of tight end you think the team is lacking. I mean, are you looking for a Y? Are you looking for someone who does some of the stuff Tucker Fisk did, like split zone? Or are you looking for a flex tight end, a jumbo kind of wide receiver like Eli Stowers? What do you think Mike McDaniel would like, noting that they have Aronde Gadsden, they have Charlie Kolar, and that's really about it, unless I'm forgetting
Scott Matlock
somebody.
is probably tight end 3 right now. Won't be on the team. The answer is actually, unfortunately, they want an all-rounder, in my opinion, because they need someone who can do both in case either one of Kolar or even Ingold get injured during the season. You don't want to have to change your whole scheme because of one player's not available. So I think you could be looking at someone who has got that ability to be in multiple positions and not really master any of them. Their production may be very, very low, and therefore you can look at them as a day 3 guy.
Well, then it's Oscar Delp. It's Oscar
Riley
Delp from
Norowski?
Georgia.
Yeah, or Oscar Delp for Ben Barrett. No, not Ben Barrettson. The other Barrettson from Michigan. Those types of guys. I think if their blocking is good, they're gonna get onto the team quickly. And I feel like that's what they'll value first, and then pass catching upside. For me, then the opposite of that is if you had a Kenyon Sadiq on board, you don't need another wide receiver, because he becomes that through his sheer athleticism. He can start from an alignment that is a tight end and then become a wide receiver and flex between those. So you've got your wide receiver tight end flex, that's your Y, and then you've got your F or your H or your U, depending on what you call it in your system, which is your bigger boy that can block and then also be a tight end as well. So either or, probably all encompassing would be great.
And I think Sadiq fits that mold. If they want to be extravagant and give Mike McDaniel one of these weapons, I'm probably slightly lower on Sadiq than consensus. He's my 25th overall player, so I don't view him as that Rock Bowers, Colston Loveland caliber of prospect. The reason why for me is I didn't see a lot of zone feel and him being able to work underneath. I still saw a guy who was quite raw. The receiving production was much lower than the type of guys who have gone that high before. For him, he's winning against man coverage really well. You're talking about, or on trick plays, Y-leak, wheel route on a linebacker, just seam route straight down the field. And we're talking about a guy whose 10-yard split was quicker than Deshaun Jackson's and 40-yard dash was quicker than Odell Beckham Jr.'s, despite being 6'3", 241 pounds. So he's that modern day matchup problem who also blocks with a lot of great effort. I don't think he can dig out defensive ends, but on linebackers and nickels, he's adequate. I just think you'll need to work on the actual feel for the position and the route running. I saw a guy who's maybe more of an athlete than a football player, but that's the kind of guy you get in Mike McDaniel's hands. And with a year of development at 21 years of age, I would still be excited by the pick. But we're firmly in the camp of we need help at line, we need help at edge, we need another tackle.
Trenches, yeah.
So tight end is a luxury, and in a deep class, I haven't watched them all, but everyone says they're a great day 3 tight ends. Maybe that's the way to go. All right, let's finish off our show with a bit of wide receiver talk. And sorry for the running back fans out there. We ain't interested, not in this class anyway. Talk to me, mate. How do you see wide receivers and why am I so wrong?
It's not you, it's everyone with this first one. I haven't published this anywhere, so this is fresh off.
Safe space. Safe space. Who's shit or who's great?
I have Carnell Tate as a 3rd round player.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Interesting. I have him right as a guy who may top out as a very good wide receiver 2 in the NFL without ever quite making it as his team's key guy. So I did not see an ascendant wide receiver 1. I had him in the slender frame, physicality are both going to be question marks against bigger, longer corners. Has enough tricks to get open, but he's in the same family of receiver as Devontae Smith, Travis Hunter, and Chris Olave, yet lacks their deep speed. That's kind of how I have positioned him. But I just thought his feel in zone coverage was pretty special, and then also ran a really nice skinny post. I think he runs the post route really well. So
I know. There's 2 things about
it. I like the player, man. I think he's a good player.
I know, but how he's been talked about as a top 10 player is beyond me. If you just look at his production, even if you just break it down by that,
where do I have him?
What, you?
I think I've got him as shit. I've got him as 11th. Go on.
There you go. Notes and the grade don't always line up, guys. Sometimes you get caught up in things. So it happens to me as well. The big one for me is his post corner route is outstanding, but he used it so often, and they knew that. It's like on Madden when you figure out that one play for the year, where you're like, okay, yeah, it's PA flood. You hit the over. Yeah. You're gonna
PA boots,
PA boot to DK Metcalf on the backside. It's open every single time. So with that was what Ohio State did with him. And for me, for example, his best game in terms of his best opposition, where he had the best production, was Penn State. That corner, he beat the same corner with the same move 3 times for 120 yards.
Yep.
But there wasn't enough variance, and also with a 40-yard dash of 4.53. That's not enough. And also, it's not just
that's a position. Is wide receiver become a position where your 40 time doesn't really matter? I'm leaning a little more towards that.
I absolutely disagree. I think your 40 time matters so much as a wide receiver if you are the type of receiver he's trying to be.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's your downfield threat who can he does have a good feel for zone. He breaks back to the ball well, but comebacks. He has easy hands, guides it in on the sideline.
Great hands. He's got very good hands, I thought.
Yeah, but for me, his route speed isn't great as well. That's what annoys me. So he's not generating speed. He's not forcing the cornerback to back off quickly. They can stay with it. Also, I believe Justin Jefferson was talking about this. It's something that I've really felt for a long time. He's talking about this at some sort of camp recently, that the NFL doesn't run post routes too often. Yeah, your vertical routes are not so varied. Yeah, everything is about lateral cuts, getting in, down, and out of your lateral cuts as quickly and efficiently as you can. And I don't think Carnell Tate does that very well.
Okay.
So I feel, and also he tends to round off his cuts and get in sort of signpost to the corner that they're coming, because he's expecting the ball to be delivered at a tempo that means that he's going to win no matter what really he does. And also, yeah, go look at, if you look at who he has over 100 yards against over his last 2 years. It's like Wisconsin, like Nebraska, Minnesota. He doesn't do it in big games.
Well, he had his worst game in the college playoff against Miami.
Same 2024.
3 out of 8, 37 yards. And he does lack some dynamism after the catch as well, if you ask me. Like, that's not his skill. All right, you've maybe persuaded me. I might have to adjust those grades very slightly after the show, mate. There's still 4 days to go. Since we're being negative, I'm not as high on Makai Lemon as the rest of
I'm not
people.
either.
Man, no. Jesus, I thought you'd. Yeah, okay, great. I like hearing that. Makai Lemon is my 34th ranked player. Some people think he's a top 10. He's going to go to the Rams. Let's start with like what he does well. Because he's 5'11", 192, 30.5-inch arms. So think about it. A small, probably slot-only player. If you want to see him get dominated, go watch him play against Notre Dame this year. Outside cornerback.
He was. I turned off the tape. It was just.
He can't do it, right? No. So what he does well, like his hands are very reliable very reliable, and he can even make catches outside his frame for a smaller receiver. And I thought that was pretty special. You just watch his game against Iowa. Again, it's in the category of best games any receiver had against a team this year. He makes 3 ridiculous catches, and that kind of speaks to the other thing.
The first one to open the game was wild.
Outrageous. And I do think there is something to this. He does play with that alpha mentality. He is the type of guy 100%. Who wants the ball thrown his way. Almost to the point where it's borderline. You can see him starting to crack the shits when he's not getting the ball. He says, throw me the ball. But then typically something good happens when you do. So I actually viewed that as a positive overall. This is a guy who's the big stage is not going to be too big for him. He has enough like route craft to kind of do his job from the slot, and runs a pretty full route tree, I thought, at all levels.
Not just the route tree as well. How they used him everywhere. They used him in the backfield, like in motions, like on fly sweeps. Yep. He kind of did, and also for some reason he has a fantastic arm. Did you see his pass? Yeah. Not important, but
he's a good player.
Yeah, I think he is also gonna. I've mocked him to the Jets, and I think it's absolutely perfect because he is gonna be your quarterback's best friend. He is open quickly in intermediate areas. His feel for zone and pattern matching. He understands how to work off of other people's motions, like cut underneath. He has a feel for the entire offense, and that means that he is going to be able to move the change as a possession receiver. My impact, and he also sets himself up well for yak opportunities by like breaking back to the wall and then like cutting around. But he's not explosive. I know that sounds like I could, but for a guy who's going to go maybe top 10,
he's just not.
Yeah.
He labors to meet man coverage, like shallow drags and crosses. He really struggles with it.
Yeah, I was going to say he has really good short area. So I'm talking like 2 yards either direction, like working off your agility type things. But his long speed isn't there. He's a willing blocker, but he really struggles with his aiming when he's doing it, which matters in a lot of schemes these days. Yeah. So especially as a slot, you're going to be asked to block a lot, and also he doesn't break tackles at all.
Nope.
At all.
So I just wonder, he lacks home run speed, yak skills. He struggles a bit naturally because of his frame to get off press or to fight through man coverage. So it's hard to imagine an NFL team viewing him as better than their number 2 option, potentially number 3. You really need to commit to
The
feeding
ball.
this guy targets.
That's why I said
And
the Jets, they've got no receivers. They have
I'm not
none.
seeing Amon
So-
Ra St. Brown, who is an elite playmaker after the catch. So you could
I
force the
would-
ball to this guy, but is he going to be efficient for your offense, I guess?
Yeah. I was really low on Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my bigger draft misses. I had him like wide receiver 14 in that class. And so I've tried to make sure that I don't miss that in my evaluation. So with Lemon, I checked twice. And yeah, I think I definitely agree with you there.
So maybe Omar Cooper's a bit more like Amon Ra St. Brown, where after the catch, he can actually fight through some stuff. I've got a bit of a prejudice against slot receivers generally. I've realized every year it is the Omar Coopers, the Makai Lemons, who I'm just naturally lower on. I prefer taking a risk on a guy who I think can win on the outside.
I have
but
the
that's
same
just
sort
me.
of preference. I have the same sort of preference, but especially I don't like power slots because I feel like they've been put there for a negative reason. And Cooper, by the way, I did not realize this until I started watching the tape. He was their third receiver. They did not put him on the field.
Who is the other? Is Surratt and
No, I don't know his name off the top of my head,
Right.
but I kept noting he was only on the field in 11 personnel. Especially in the playoff, and then there were games where he went completely missing. As in when he did go on the field, he didn't have the rhythm of the game and stuff like that. So, I won't press on him too long because I don't have a high opinion of him, but I don't also feel like I've seen him mocked in the first, which is ridiculous to me. Who's your favorite receiver?
the guy who I couldn't quit and would love to see him in Mike McDaniel's hands is KC Concepcion. Right. I know the drops were a thing and that's unavoidable, but I don't want to focus too much on drops when I also see him make some ludicrous catches down the field, including on double coverage, like against Notre Dame. This guy's the only guy I couldn't battle tested and delivered in key matchups against Cal in 2024, where they had two draftable players in the secondary with Craig Woodson and Noel Williams. Notre Dame, South Carolina, he's tearing up Brandon Cisse. LSU, he had some good reps against Mansour Delane. So I saw very little wasted movement in his route running. I saw great explosiveness off the line and suddenness. He devours off coverage with enough speed and route savvy to consistently get open.
His route speed is lovely.
Really good. Play strength, okay, it's going to be a problem in certain unfavorable matchups, I think, at his... what is he? He's 6 foot 196 with 30 and a quarter inch arms. It's not small.
No, I
but
was
maybe
going to
at
say
the catch point,
in pads he looks smaller than that. So I think the genuinely, and you say about Cat his drop rate, his quarterback was horrific.
Oh,
So,
mate?
Haynes
If
King,
Tao,
oh
you're
my
listening,
God.
when he was at NC State, I saw them miss. They're trying to throw swing passes and just throwing it into the ground. I'm like, what is this poor fucker got to do to have a quarterback who throws it on target?
Against South Carolina, I'm not joking because I was noting it down. I was like, same note. He had 3 pass breakups, KC Concepcion, because Haynes King kept missing him. And he kept him, but he had the football savvy enough to go up and punch it out as the DB's trying to catch it.
Yeah, everything's underthrown.
So I know I just really liked it. I thought the thing I kept coming back to is I don't really care about how he tested or what size he is. He just gets open, and separation you can't teach that. So you can't. That's not something you get given at the next level. So it's something really impressive to me.
All right, Chris Bell. And do you know what? I don't know what to do with Chris Bell because I've got all these negative notes about how it's some of the worst route running I've seen, in terms of lack of route craft. But then I've got, there aren't too many guys who remind me of actual Debo with when the ball's in his hands, what he can do. So then I think in this class, I'd rather just take a risk on developing a guy like that with a good receiver coach.
Right. So let me put 2 names to you.
Yep.
And see what you think about them. Laviska Shenault and Keon Coleman. That's the bucket Chris Bell fits into to me. He's big, stiff. Yeah, when I say stiff, I mean he's flying in a straight line. Like you saw against Miami, you eviscerated those angles. Yeah. Talking about game-breaking ability. But also, I just he's a big guy, but he doesn't play big in terms of, like, elsewhere. He's got his catch radius is pretty poor. He like, you know, what was it? He had a contested catch rate of 50%, but like to me, it was only indicative of, like, you know, his when his QB was on target, he, like, you know, so. I also just don't like his route. Like you said, his route, he cannot get off of man coverage, and for me, that's like just a big no for me. Also, he didn't test, like, so like that's hard to say.
Well, he's coming back from his ACL.
Yeah, I know, but it's hard to say he's a dynamic athlete enough to put him up as the sort of round 2 he's being touted at.
Here's where like the selling point for him, right, is straight line and speed is true take it to the house when he's on.
Mm-hmm.
Also, thick legs make him a genuine headache to tackle after the catch. You can see, you know, dangerous on jet sweeps, pretty good long force missed tackle skills. So already that combo has you interested. And then he had a 3-game stretch this year, Pittsburgh, Virginia, Miami, where he's had 41 targets, 31 catches, 441 yards, 5 touchdowns in that 3-game bucket. So including Miami, who are no slouches. So that's where I'm a bit interested, but he's obviously suffered his ACL. You can jump in, but I also want to ask you, I noticed this technical thing, and I don't know enough about coaching the sport. His hands were up in a prayer position rather than hanging low at the snap. I haven't seen receivers do that. Is that a thing?
Some that's probably from his high school. Like, okay. Some coaches teach that it's to make sure that they're not dropping their hands too fast at the line. So it means that they can deal with jam attempts as well.
But it might affect your first step, your acceleration. It takes longer to start
it's quite an immature thing to do, as in, like, it's what you teach people who haven't quite got the release like down to a T, that art. So you give them sort of guide rails in a way. I actually preferred, I'm not going to talk about him too much, but I actually preferred for the same sort of role a guy out of Alabama, Jeremy Bernard.
Yeah, just a football player.
Yeah. I mean, he moved around everywhere. Like, and I love when they use him out the backfield. He's closer to Debo for me than Bell. So
he had a bit of Keenan for me, where, like, it doesn't matter where the first down marker is, he just somehow gets to it.
Is this one where I actually just put his note as Keenan? No, that's someone else. But then I that's who I put. I put Elijah Surratt as Keenan for me.
Okay.
That's like the closest. I didn't do a super deep dive, but like I feel like he'd serve a power slot role well, but in a positive way. So I feel like he. Also, I didn't realize he started his uni days at St. Francis, went to James Madison, Indiana, to win a championship in Indiana next year. That's like some 4-year climb. The guy I want to talk about before so first of all, we haven't mentioned him yet, but Jordan Tyson. I genuinely feel like his best tape is similar to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
I've got Justin Jefferson in my notes. Yep.
Yeah, the way he moves, his route running, like his control, everything is detailed as well, which is super important for me with wide receivers. If you're doing everything with purpose, if you're in and out of your breaks with deep bends, if you're setting things up, even if you're simple routes, if you are putting your head fakes into the right place, you're not just gambling on the fact that you're a better athlete, and he is a good athlete. So he's my wide receiver 1, and if it wasn't for his injuries, I'd probably say I'll be happy taking him top 5.
He would have been my wide receiver 1 by a mile. I've actually moved him below Tate. I know I'd probably rather the Chargers take the risk on Tyson if he's at 22. But
oh my God, yes.
You know, torn ACL, MCL, and PCL, broken collarbone, double hamstring strains at Arizona State, and there's still question marks about it. I also do think catching skills, like around physical contact, showed up as a problem area a little bit. I did do a post on X where I had 6 examples where there are just those, okay, you're better than that, man. You can catch that ball, whether it was focus or, you know, just feeling that he might be hit. And this is where, for a team like the Chargers, is that blood area does he feel shadows a little bit? Might be question marks with him. I've heard people also criticize his not effort, but
I know
consistency
what you mean.
that he
Yeah,
does a
it's
bit too much
consistency.
or is a bit weird.
Yeah, I do see that on tape, so that did make its way into my notes. The one guy that I am significantly higher than everyone on is Chris Brazil, the second out of Tennessee.
Yeah, I watched him 2 days ago.
6'5", 200, like probably just under 198 pounds. He straight up eats up ground, like terrifies corners and safeties. You can see it in the way that they're playing him. They've got 2 men on him at all times. And they play, and also because of just the nature of it, like Tennessee were like, okay, we're going to put 4 receivers to the short side of the field, and then we're going to put Brazil all the way over there on his own. And I feel like, he's a dog. My issue is obviously his mentality. On tape. It's not the fact that he is aggressive. I like that. It's more that there are plays where he sort of does his job initially and then he just stops. Or he, for example, he'll run a quick hitch, turn around, that'll be the end of it. Then the guy coming over on a drag or something like that will get the ball, and the guy at his corner goes straight and tackles him because he was not engaged. He didn't run a route. So I've seen that a few times on him, and also there is I think he's got something to do with DUI or something like that.
Okay.
It's a small one. I don't think it's quite as serious as DUI. And I probably shouldn't be saying off the without the information to hand, but I did see something as a red flag.
Maybe more of a schematic thing. I know it's very difficult with these Mickey Mouse air raid offenses where it's like half field designated reads and half the reps he's barely trying because the ball's like a hitch to the other side of the field.
Yeah.
That also makes it difficult to project. We know the hit rate of these Tennessee receivers has been poor in the league. I saw enough from him, like intermediate dig routes, and I think he ran a really nice blaze out at one point to think he's got a bit more than some of these guys like Jalen Hyatt. However, I didn't see much evidence on tape of zone receiving feel or skills. And my question to you is, entering a league where most coverages are zone, does that make you pause that this field stretching vertical receiving type might not really be that valuable in the modern day NFL?
To a degree, yes, but when you're 6'5", you can run a 4.34. How much how much zone field do you need because you're working the boundary a lot of the time?
Well, is he more your wide receiver 4, or is he like Mike Williams wide receiver 2? How are you?
I'd see him. His definite ceiling is definitely wide receiver 2. I put him down at having wide receiver 1 traits as well, because he can work at volume as well. So that's for me, it's something. Can you scale up from being your big play guy to your volume guy? And he does. So and also Josh Heupel's offense is an absolute nightmare. So projecting that, the fact that he did so well already, speaks volumes to me. So yeah, big fan.
All right. Final question, and then at the 2-hour, 20-minute mark, geez, you've got your value for money. It doesn't actually cost anything to watch us. It's pretty good. We've really poured out everything we feel about this class. Do you expect the Chargers to take a wide receiver? And if so, kind of where do you think that might happen?
It's a luxury. And unless they trade down, I do not see them taking one. I feel like they'd be happy going into the next season with the wide receiver room they have. The one that is obviously a wild card is if they traded away QJ, then obviously have to replace him. Yep. I know KLS has got like the skill set that would suit the Mike McDaniel scheme more. Because you're not necessarily looking for someone about yak. You're not putting them in specific. You do have that, but that's more in your short intermediate areas, not your deep field areas. And I feel like they might just use him as a ball winner. But like deep ball winner with KLS, as he showed he can do last year. But I don't see it. I'm liking studying these wide receivers. I don't necessarily think that it's going to come to fruition. What about you?
I feel the same way. I think we've got enough of a sense over press conferences that McDaniel and Ortiz both quite like the room. There may be an exception if you can trade for a star after the draft, right? We're thinking AJ Brown or those types of players. Or you can always sign a Debo type after the draft.
Debo
right?
or Juwan Jennings both seem to have, even though they're completely different, they would both offer elements in this. But I still think it comes only if we trade away or lose a player in another direction. It's for an injury or something like that.
Because the room's pretty crowded as it is. So I'm not expecting it. I will be surprised. And if I'm being honest, I don't think I actually quite love this wide receiver class enough that I'd be super thrilled with it. I know there's some depth there, but a lot of these guys we've discussed, I mean, you've got a round 3 grade on some. I'm more in that round 2 area. I don't know if, given the needs of the team, it's worth taking a wide receiver, unless it's day 3 and you're taking, throwing a dart at someone with elite traits.
Bryce Lance, something like that. Malachi Fields, those big guys, they give you skills that QJ doesn't quite. So that's an option. Bryce Lance is fun.
All right,
and his brother's on the team.
To the chagrin of some. So that will do us, folks. I hope you really enjoyed that. Ryan, I really enjoyed that, man. It's really good to share perspectives with someone who's done the work, and definitely feels like we had more things we saw similarly than in a way that's completely diametrically opposed. Naturally, there are going to be some things that we see differently. You've got a different background to me, a more professional footballing background, I should say, especially on corners. But hope you all listened and enjoyed that one. We will be back with an episode after the draft, probably the weekend following the draft, because I will be cracking that tape pretty hard the moment that the draft is done. Enjoy watching, everybody. It's going to be fantastic. Finally, we can talk about actual charges rather than hypothetical charges. Ryan, before we leave, anywhere where listeners can find you or any work that you have in the pipeline?
I'll be pushing out my final sets of rankings. So wide receivers is ready to go very shortly. Probably drop tomorrow on stormcloud.blog. You can find my Twitter handle. It's about here. And I post it on there as well. Carl and I will be getting back onto the Powderkeg Podcast probably post draft, given our first episode of the off season. And I just want to say, Al, thank you so much for this. 2.5 hours talking draft prospects. I've still got loads of notes if we want to go on for more. But
we'll stay on. We'll keep talking for the next 3 hours, and we'll let these listeners go. Thanks, mate. We'll have you again soon, I'm sure, and we'll see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Bye.
Back pedals looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it. 6 10, 5, high step, touchdown, San Diego!